I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thursday, August 28th, Bloomfield Town Planning and Zoning Commission at 7:03. First item on the agenda is a roll call.
One moment, please. We had it live on YouTube error. Shut down on, so we can just give it 1 minute. Please.
Sure.
7:03 p.m.
It is? Oh, yeah, we're good. Okay. Great.
Okay, once again, we'll call this meeting to order. Thursday, August 28th at 7:06 PM. Bloomfield Town Planning and Zoning Commission. First item on the agenda is a roll call. Here.
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 All right, we got 5 members. Linda. Is there alternate sitting? Okay. Thank you. First item on the agenda, Chair entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 27th, 2025, March 27th, 2025, April 24th, 2025, May 22nd, 2025, June 26th, 2025, and July 17th, 2025. Any errors, corrections?
I abstain. I wasn't here on June 26th, so I abstain.
And actually, I wasn't here on July 17th, so maybe I should abstain, or I shouldn't make the motion.
Okay. Renee James abstaining for July 17th.
I'll move that we approve the July 17th minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I abstain from the May 22nd and from the July 17th as I was not present.
Mr. Chair, I have a few comments or revisions.
Sure.
For the March, on page 4, at the bottom of the page, regarding the calculation for rounding up or down, it was for the number of affordable units, not AMI.
Okay, duly noted.
For the May minutes on page 6, motion to appoint Commissioner, it was Steve Millette, not Brian Millette. There might be one more. In the July minutes, on page 5, just at the very top of the page, pollution 6. I'm not sure if that was just an extra letter there. And at the top of page 6, incorporate as many energy efficiency measures as possible versus and. Those are my only notes. Yeah.
Okay, duly noted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I also have one comment on the July 17th, and that's on page 5. There's a reference to related to inclusionary zoning and the housing trust. I think it's affordable housing trust. Isn't it the affordable housing trust, not just housing trust?
Yes.
So
Okay, duly noted. Any further corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstention, chair votes aye. First item on the agenda is a public hearing. I'll ask the secretary to read the legal notice.
Notice is hereby given that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission will hold a regular meeting on Thursday, August 28th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Hybrid meeting in person at 800 Bloomfield Avenue, Council Chambers Room, and virtually via Zoom to consider the following: 5, 7, and 9 Northwood Drive and 9 West Dudley Town Road, special permit and site plan application per sections 4.4.c.4.u of the zoning regulations to allow outdoor storage as an accessory use for a proposed contractor's yard business in the I-2 zoning district. Applicant Burns Construction Company, Inc., owner 5 Northwood Drive LLC.
Okay, thank you. Before we proceed with our public hearing, I just want to go over the process on how we conduct our public hearings. We'll first hear a presentation from the applicant. We'll then hear comments from our director. We'll then take questions from the audience. We'll take questions from the commission. We'll then have comments from the audience. We'll take comments from the commission. And then the applicant will have one last chance to make any closing remarks before we close the public hearing. With that said, who's here for the application? State your name and address, please.
Can you please turn on your mic? Thank you.
There you go. Do you want me to start over? Okay, all right. Take 2. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is John Casey. I'm a partner with the law firm of Robinson & Cole, representing the applicant this evening. As was stated in the call of the hearing, we are here requesting a special permit for a contractor's yard under sections 44C4U, outside storage as an accessory use. We are also seeking special permit under 61C8, which is tree cutting in excess of 10% of the tree canopy cover on the lot. And we are also requesting a waiver of the sidewalk requirement in section 610F. A little history, permitting history. The wetlands map amendment for this site was approved in May, on the 19th of May, and our regulated activity permit was granted on July 21st with a number of conditions that we are prepared to meet. With me tonight is Tim Hool and Jordan Buslowitz from BL Companies. Tim will give the substantive presentation as soon as I finish my little intro. As a procedural issue, prior to the start of the hearing, we submitted our sign affidavit and the copies of the mailing receipts, so we believe we're all set with that procedural requirement. As was read into the record, there's 4 lots, 5 Northwood Drive, 7 Northwood Drive, 9 Northwood Drive, and 9 West Dudleytown Road. One of them is developed with an existing building. That's 5 Northwood Drive. The other 3 are wooded and undeveloped. It's zoned I2, and the purposes of which is to provide areas suitable for warehousing, secondary processing and packaging, with related outdoor storage and incidental sales. This is generally in your industrial park. Surrounding land uses include commercial and industrial businesses, including another contractor's yard. There's a town public work facility, and 1 or 2 other undeveloped parcels. With that, I will turn it over to Tim, who will run through the site plan and all the related permit requirements and standards. And when we're done, I'll come up and say a few words to wrap things up after public comment and answer any questions that the commission may have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim, and we're going to share our screen so that the site plan and the plans are on the screen for anyone watching from home.
Thank you.
Yes. So good evening. My name is Tim Hool from BL Companies. I do have Jordan here. She's actually signed in on Zoom under my name. I see she's coming on as a panelist now. So thank you very much. So I would like to go over a few existing conditions items that Mr. Casey did not mention. There are 4 lots, as was mentioned. We are prepared to consolidate those lots as a condition of approval. I believe we did have a draft lot consolidation plan in our plan set here, essentially just showing we are planning to consolidate all 4 lots into a single parcel. The total area of the single consolidated parcel would be about 6.6 acres. Currently, the parcel is bordered by Northwood Drive, which is the planned south side. There is the portion of West Dudleytown Road that is planned right. There's also the community firehouse kind of northeast on the plan view. Another contractor yard to the rear, planned north. And then there is an electric company to the south, which is planned left. Currently, the facility has a single building located on, I believe it is the 5 Northwood Drive parcel. The building is just under 18,000 square feet. That facility will remain as is. There's no building improvements, no footprint changes proposed as a part of this project. The paved area surrounding the building contains about 14 parking spaces and 1 loading dock. There are also material storage bins on that parcel in the rear, which is the plan north again. Those 4 material storage bins were installed when the current tenant, which is Burns Construction Company, the applicant, when they took out their lease on this facility. And those material bins were inadvertently installed just over the property line. The rear of them go a couple feet past. We are proposing, and we'll get to that in a moment, to resolve that encroachment, pull that back onto the property. The existing building has all the necessary utility connections. We are not proposing to modify those, but it does have water, sewer, storm drain, electric, telecommunications, and gas. As mentioned, we did go before Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. There are 2 main wetland resources on site. On the plan right, there is a vegetated wetland system, And then on the plan left, kind of in the top left corner, there is a slightly larger wetland system on our site, but then it extends into offsite properties, continuing to the south or plan left. Generally speaking, the sites are, the two portions of the site away from the building are primarily all wooded today. There are those wetlands pockets within the forest, but most of the parcel is upland area. We are not within any FEMA floodplain areas as well. For stormwater infrastructure, the property does contain a few catch basins within the paved areas. Those discharge more or less directly without any retention or treatment. There's a catch basin in the backyard space that discharges to the wetland resources. And then there are a few catch basins in the front area of the property. Those discharge into the municipal system in Northwood Drive. Roof runoff is captured as well, piped underground and direct discharge into the municipal system in Northwood Drive. So looking ahead to proposed conditions. So as I mentioned, the existing building will remain as is, no footprint changes. Give or take 18,000 square feet. The proposed building does comply with all setbacks, although we are not modifying it. It does comply with the required front, side, and rear setbacks. We are proposing additional parking. The building does not currently meet the latest parking standards, which we have one space per 2 employees on any one shift, but in no case less than 1 per 500 square feet. We're proposing 36 spaces, which would comply with the 1 space per 500 square feet. Proposed employees, we're expecting roughly 30. So in this case, the controlling factor is the square foot area of the building. So of those 36 parking spaces, we are retaining the roughly 14 along the immediate building wall on it would be east side from plan view. It's the north side of the site. And then we are expanding that pavement area a little bit to the plan right to add the remaining needed parking spaces. It does push the existing curbing paving limits a little bit farther towards that northern or plan right side, but it largely retains the same function and everyday travel pathways that the employees are used to. As I mentioned, there are the material storage bins in the rear of the property. We are pulling those in, resolving the encroachment. We are also pulling it far enough in that we can provide space for some landscape buffer between the back of the bins and the property behind us. I believe the number is somewhere around 10 feet or so of buffer, but we are resolving that conflict. We are also adding in a formal space for refuse containers that is also in the rear of the property. Those are those two, the darker gray squares and rectangles in the back. The ones on the very planned northern edge, those are the material storage bins. And then the two smaller ones on just to the left of that, those are the refuse containers. As I mentioned, utility connections are not proposed to be modified at all because there's no building changes. There's no need to update or modify any of the utility connections. We are proposing to make some modifications to the site grading and stormwater management. Overall, the site does, the proposed development will include addition of the main contractor yard on it's the plan left, which is the south side of the building. So in order to accommodate that, we do need to add noticeable improvements for stormwater management. That area is a little bit lower, and due to the presence of the wetlands, we do have to fill in that area a little bit to provide the separation to groundwater needed for the stormwater infiltration to comply with the state regulations. So on that southern side, we're bringing in a couple feet of fill, and overall that yard space will drain in one of two directions. It'll drain primarily to the plan left, off of the yard space, and we have some drainage swales that will convey the water into the stormwater basin. It'll be pre-treated through the swales, and then have the primary treatment through the active infiltration and storage within the basin. And then in overflow conditions, we do also have a swale as well. There's an overflow weir set so that in large storm events, if it exceeds capacity of the basin in exceptionally large storms, water will overflow that weir and flow out towards the wetlands in the southwest corner of the property, which is matching existing conditions. This whole area, the south side or plan left of the building, pretty much all of it drains towards that wetland in existing conditions. In the paved yard space, we are proposing some improvements there as well. The catch basin in the rear will remain exactly as is. That is currently installed online on a culvert connecting the two wetland areas together. So in the interest of maintaining the hydraulic connection between the wetlands, we wanted to leave that alone, but we are proposing improvements on the front half of the site. Because we are pushing the curb out a little bit to expand the parking, we do need to add some stormwater retention. So what we're proposing is connecting the catch basins on that front side into an underground stormwater retention system. So what we're essentially going to be holding the water and slowly releasing it out into the municipal system to match the existing discharge point, but also through the act of storing it and slowly releasing it, we're ensuring that the water will flow out at a rate matching or in a slight reduction compared to existing conditions. Jumping back quickly to the outdoor storage area, we are proposing the surface treatment in that storage area to be reclaimed asphalt millings. Given that this is a contractor's yard, it will there's going to be a variety of equipment stored in that area. We did show them on the site plan 3 to 4 triaxle dump trucks with trailers. Roughly 1 excavator per trailer, and possibly a loader. And with those excavators, a lot of them have metal tracks. If we were to use a regular asphalt or a concrete pavement, the metal tracks will tear that up and chew it up, and it will get chewed up and really ground up into millings within a handful of years. We found these contractor yards are much more suitable for the millings because it's a very easy to maintain surface. So that is what we are proposing for the surface treatment. As I mentioned, overall number of employees will be about 30. Hours of operation are expected to be about 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We are proposing to modify the existing driveways. The curb cuts will remain where they are today, but in our analysis and design for verifying truck turning movements in and out, the existing driveways are just a little restrictive. So we're proposing to just widen out the curb openings and provide a slightly wider radius so that tractor trailers or dump trucks towing trailers can come in safely off the street without risk of clipping a curb. So there's slight modifications there. And then the general traffic flow, the plan right side will be primarily employees or occasionally it may be a dump truck or so going into the material storage bin in the back. The vast majority of the more construction traffic will be utilizing the plan left driveway. So we do have a couple different shades shown on the plan. The darker gray is the limits of the reclaimed asphalt for the proper yard storage area. The lighter gray is where we're proposing new bituminous asphalt pavement. So you'll notice on that left side, it's a bituminous asphalt all the way out to the street line. And then we do have a road going around the building on that plan left-hand side. The intention there is to have the ability for pretty much all construction related traffic to be isolated to that southern driveway so that there's very little overlap between employees and construction traffic. If there's dump trucks coming into the material bins, whether it's a dropping off material or picking it up, they can enter on that plan left driveway and circulate around the building without having to intermix with the employee parking area. There are also new concrete pads proposed for the material storage bins and the refuse containers. Currently, those bins are just sitting on the asphalt pavement, but we are proposing to do concrete as a floor for those so that it's a little bit more stable, and certainly a more uniform surface for storage of the various soil products that may be stored there. We do also have a pretty comprehensive landscaping plan included. Specifically, we have screening along the front side, the plan south, and along the plan left towards our southern abutter. That includes a large number of evergreens for visual screening. There's also screening behind the material storage bins, as I mentioned previously. That is a row primarily evergreens again, separating our property from the contractor yard behind us to provide some screening. We are also proposing to add street and parking lot trees. So there's a handful of shade trees being proposed along the frontage and a couple along the border of the parking area. And as a condition of approval from inland wetlands, we are going to be adding buffer plantings between the storage yard and the wetland area. So that would be kind of where the hand is going right now on that planned north side of the storage yard. There will be some buffer plantings consisting primarily of wetfoot species to provide a little bit of a soft transition between the yard and the wetlands, as well as provide a nice visual barrier where the contractor yard stops and the buffer zone and vegetation starts. We did receive a thorough review from town staff, both through the inland wetlands process as well as this process for the special permit. The wetlands comments, conditions of approval, we are prepared to satisfy all of those comments. We have sent in a set to Mr. Casaldi. We believe we've satisfied most of them at this point. We know there's a little back and forth to remain, but we are working through that. We also did receive a few comments from the town engineer. We did respond to those, I believe it was last week. We feel the vast majority of them are fairly minor in nature. We have no problem satisfying those. And I believe it was mentioned in the staff memo that largely they are satisfied. I think there's two that may be open and have a little bit more discussion to remain, but we're confident that we can coordinate with town staff to satisfy those comments as well. So I believe with that, I'll pass it back to. Want to mention the sidewalk? Yes, thank you for the reminder. So we are requesting the waiver from the sidewalk requirement, as Mr. Casey had mentioned. Specifically, the regulations allow for the waiver under 3 conditions. What our professional opinion, the condition that applies here is that there would be little public benefit to having a sidewalk here. There is no sidewalk on this section of West Dudley Town Road, and there's no sidewalk on Northwood Drive. When we combine that with the fact that this is a very industrial area, it's a contractor use, installing a sidewalk would basically be a sidewalk to nowhere. There's nothing to connect to. There's no transit stops immediately at this vicinity. And there's no sidewalks on West Dudley to connect to as well. So we feel the waiver of the sidewalk does fall under the criteria for little public benefit. I believe with that, John, did you want to provide a few final remarks?
Thank you, Tim. Again, for the record, John Casey. I think we'll wait to see if there's any questions, and then we'll do our final remarks then. It's pretty straightforward. We want to know what we're going to ask for, but it's probably best to hear the comments and if there's any responses we need, so we can wrap everything up at the end of the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Linda.
Thank you, Commissioners. Linda Loriano, Assistant Director of Building and Land Use.
In your package, you received the staff report regarding the proposed contractor's yard. There were some listed conditions, recommended, conditions of approval under the staff. And I'd like to just add to that, as the presenter was stating about the storage bins, material storage bins. The commission may want to either put a height limit. I'm not sure. It wasn't really stated on the types of material. I know they said soil, but maybe I would say if they could give us a list of the types of materials that are going to be stored and also a maximum height, that would be, I guess, one to ensure that it's not going to exceed, a height that wouldn't be permitted.
For the record, John Casey, we checked with Burns, so the materials would be sand, stone, and highway debris. They are basically a road contractor. They have a lot of state DOT contracts, so all the materials they get when they're rebuilding roads, they bring it here, and this will be a stopping point before it's ultimately disposed of. So those are the three materials that will be kept in the bins. Actually, the question of the height I think came up in wetlands, and we don't have a specific height. They're made from big concrete blocks, if I'm not mistaken. So, but I think it's typically 3 of those blocks. So I don't think it's much higher than 8 feet, possibly, but I can't say for certain. Tim, do you have anything to?
Usually they're 6 feet for 3 blocks high. That would be the wall itself.
So for the record, 6 feet, 3 blocks high, each block is 2 feet. And that would be the height of the wall that would encapsulate the materials.
And the material height would exceed 6 feet?
I think it possibly could under certain circumstances, yes.
Okay, to what maximum height?
Oh, well, I'm sure there's a point where it would spill over.
15?
It seems like an
12?
engineering question.
Yeah.
It shouldn't exceed 15.
Okay,
No. No, if you're asking would it exceed like the building height for the zone, I don't think that's
okay.
a reasonable, it's not likely, I should say, that it's going to exceed the maximum building height.
Thank you.
Okay.
So as we're going through this, the commission may want to consider imposing maybe a maximum height to the material storage, just because, sometimes change of ownership, other materials may be stored there, and we don't want that to, we want to be able to just contain it and be able to enforce it. In addition to that, I would also like to add that the lots be combined as part of this approval. I know that it's in their proposal, but I'd like to add that as a condition to ensure that it be combined. Beside that, they did address, I spoke with our town engineer, all but 2 of their items. I gave you a copy today. I added that to your package. So it's all but just 2 minor revisions that they're going to be working with our town engineer on. Other than that, I believe that it meets the criteria as stated of the special permit. The storage area will be properly screened. The millings, instead of asphalt for the parking area or the storage area, has been approved by our town engineer. And the only other item that I believe I'd like to, would like the applicant to submit a lighting plan. If they're proposing, if there are existing lighting on the building, it should be shown on the plan as well. And a photometric plan to ensure that the light source will not, exceed, I guess, 0.1 Kelvins from the property line. So We just like to see the light source on that to ensure compliance with our light plan. Other than that, staff has no further concerns.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll entertain questions from the audience. If anyone have any questions from the audience, please come to the podium and state your name and address. Can you check online?
No one online?
Nothing online? Okay, we'll start with the commission and we'll start with Commissioner Millet. Any questions?
On the right side of the plan, which I think is on the East Dudley, is that going to be left mainly as is, undeveloped, trees stay?
Yes, so that's the plan right area, I believe you
Yes.
mentioned. Yes, that will remain. We're pushing the parking out just a handful of feet to expand, but past that, it will remain as is, yes.
Okay, so from it's not even really a main road, but the main road coming in, that will be largely, there'll be no change in view, really.
Correct.
Okay. Materials, I think part of my question was already answered, mostly road construction. Are there going to be any materials that could be contaminated or would, have further regulations that could be potentially, not good for the wetlands or, so is there a limit or some kind of, for the road construction that they're not hazardous in any way?
Yeah, any hazardous materials encountered during any of the site construction processes, certainly with roadway, really it's limited to like asbestos pipe or something like that. Any of those demolition processes fall under the deep protocols for tracking and paperwork, and it's very strict that those get hauled and disposed of by a licensed hauler, and there's a paper trail from the second it's cut and capped out of the ground. There's a paper trail that follows it every step of the way, and it has to go to licensed disposal centers. It can't just go to interim sites for temporary storage. So there's no intended storage of any hazardous materials on this site.
Okay, thank you. That was my questions.
Commissioner O'Brien. Any questions?
My question would be, if we're combining the lots, are there any special permits on the lots that are being merged into this lot that would be in conflict?
For the record, John Casey. No, the only prior approvals, and I think they're in the staff report. There's one site plan approval for the original building from 1978. Sorry. From 1978, there was a site plan approval for an addition to the existing building. And in 2007, there was a 2-year special permit to allow a 53-foot box storage trailer at the rear of that property. So that would be limited to 5 Northwood. And so the other 3 parcels have no record of any zoning approvals.
Thank you. How are you going to ensure that stormwater maintenance is handled going forward? Will there be an annual inspection by a PE that's filed with the town engineer, or exactly how are you going to do that?
I'll defer to Tim on that. I know there's a complete stormwater manual and operations guideline.
As a condition of approval from the Inland Wetlands Commission, we are submitting annual records of the stormwater operation and maintenance. The annual operation and maintenance is required under the state regulations for stormwater, but town staff, like I mentioned during Inland Wetlands, they requested a condition be added to receive written documentation of the maintenance measures being performed.
Okay. I guess this is a question. Can I ask staff a question?
Sure.
Linda, how does the town assure that things like the trees at a certain size and height are planted? Do we have a performance bond mechanism in place that can be called if it's not done?
Yes, so when they go for their final certificate of occupancy, if those plantings were not, if they're seeking for a CO, and they haven't been planted, there will be a CO agreement and they'll have a specific amount of time to do so and they'll post a bond.
Okay.
Yep, we'll get some quotes, and ensure.
So they don't post a bond at the time they get the permit, they post it when they want a CO?
If, correct, the way that we historically have been doing so, yes. Now, for soil and erosion control and, maintenance and things like that, if the commission wishes to ask the applicant to post a bond, that's up to the commission as well. But from our experience, being that most of these types of application also goes through the inland wetlands, we actually secure all of that through the inland wetlands approval with our town engineer as well prior to our approval. So we have a pretty good,
So you're comfortable with the current mechanism?
yes,
All right, thank you.
it's worked.
Okay, Commissioner James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This might be a question more for the planning department. Considering they did not submit the sidewalk plan and requested an exemption, if we didn't provide that, what would be the required sidewalk for this project? Our zoning regulation just says like the width of the sidewalk, but it's required along the street frontage of all new site developments or redevelopments. So what exactly would that sidewalk look like?
That would be, in working with our town engineer, it would be right on, within the right of way, a specific between the front property line. They have two frontages. And I'm not sure with having wetlands that they'll have some challenges on West Dudley going into Northwood. But our town engineer, actually was comfortable with the waiver. I'm not, there are no, it's up to the commission ultimately, but they would have to work with our Department of Public Works and our town engineer to install a sidewalk in the frontage
Okay.
of the
And
property.
I guess also just to be, like, make sure I'm understanding,
Yep.
there's like a large property. Would a sidewalk be required along the entirety of that property? Or is it, we're saying like just the portion where they're?
Nope, along the entirety of the property,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
the entire frontage.
Okay. That's all I have for questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Goff.
Thank you. Let's see. I guess I will just ask one question about the sidewalk, because that was one of the things that was incomplete in the staff. Well, the staff report mentioned that there was no, at the time, no request for a waiver. So just as a sort of, I understand, and we've had this, we've had a couple of instances of folks coming in, and the question is always chicken and egg. Because the question is always, well, this doesn't connect to anything right now. But I think part of the reason we put this in was because we wanted to start putting building blocks in place. And even if there were other existing properties that weren't asking for something, if there are now 2 or 3 new things and there's a sidewalk here, there's a gap, there's a sidewalk there, eventually we could fill in those gaps. So I guess my question to you on the sidewalks is our multi-use path, because it can also be a multi-use path, which might be more appropriate out here. In looking at the site plan of where this is, I understand it's sort of in an industrial area. This is putting in places where you're largely going to see commercial contractors. And of course, go ahead down at the other end is our own Public Works Department. But If you go to the east and north a little, you start getting to a commercial area. We have a brewery there. We have had discussions with this commission about having more commercial activity there. So I guess my question to you is it really enough to just say it doesn't connect to anything now? And we're building this for the future, that we start having building blocks. If this were completely industrial and everything north and east of it were industrial, does it make some sense here? So I ask that as just a general question, and
Sorry, I think we'll both have an input on that. We think given and it was just an oversight on our part not to include it in the original proposal. We had never considered a sidewalk here. Given the nature of this particular street, the way Northwood comes in and goes around and really fronts just industrial properties and activities, that even in the future, it's unlikely that this would be an area attractive for people to walk. We think it's more and is used by vehicles, and we would have the sidewalk to nowhere. Seems like a lot of the uses there are pretty well established, and maximize their coverage. The other contractor yard across the way. It's speculation, but right, I don't see them going anywhere, and I don't see a significant turnover where you would have sidewalks on any of these other properties in the next 5-10 years. We understand if it was a more commercial, active place, you got to start building those pieces. I understand that. But here, just given the nature, like I said, sort of a corner, like the road just sort of bends around to nowhere. So we think that there is no public benefit. And, we didn't really address this, but the other basis for not having a sidewalk is environmental issues. And we didn't really even evaluate it, but we think there would be issues up on West Dudleytown because we'd be so close to the wetlands there. We'd be close to the stormwater detention basin on the southern end of our property. I know the other condition or the other standard is, if it's really not technically feasible, maybe technically feasible, but we think it would take a lot of engineering to put a path here that really wouldn't benefit the public.
okay, thank you.
Yes. Anything you want to add, Tim, on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Briefly. The right of way also is pretty narrow here. So kind of building upon that, technical challenges, it may be feasible to fit a sidewalk, but it is a very narrow right of way from the curb line to the property line. That would force the sidewalk very close to or right on the curb line. And that generally the industry standards is to try to separate sidewalks as far away from the traveled way as possible to enhance pedestrian safety. So there certainly is several drawbacks with the physical design criteria that we would be seeking to satisfy with adding that sidewalk between the fitment, the wetlands proximity, the stormwater management basin, and just kind of fitting all of that within the right of way.
Great, thank you. Couple other questions. You mentioned, and I think you mentioned this in your presentation about the contractor's yard is reclaimed asphalt millings. So and this is just an educational thing for my benefit. You have asphalt, you have nothing, you have dirt or whatever, non-compacted dirt, completely permeable. Where the asphalt millings fall within the permeability, I assume these are more permeable than an asphalt. Right, so that's a good thing with respect to some permeability here, or is there too much leaching?
So normal soil conditions, the permeability varies based on whether it's sand, gravel, silt, compaction as well. And from a stormwater modeling, we look at that at I guess the the easiest way to explain it is a percentage of how much water hits that will soak in versus runoff. And that can vary from, 40% up through 70%, depending on the type of soil and makeup. When we look at reclaimed asphalt or other more like stone or gravel surfaces, it can depend. It can get somewhere in the 70-ish% range that more runs off, up to like 96%. Generally, what we think of as true impervious, whether it's concrete or regular asphalt, it's considered 98% impervious. There's a tiny bit that soaks in, but next to nothing. From a conservative standpoint, the industry always assumes items like reclaimed asphalt is 96% impervious. It's being overly conservative on the stormwater design so that we ensure our stormwater basins are sized large enough if those gravel areas get really compacted and really dense. But there certainly is, in most cases, they don't get that dense. More water will soak in and infiltrate through the yard space. So a little bit of it is the conservative nature of engineering design on why we assume it's virtually impervious, but there is definitely infiltration capacity through the reclaimed asphalt, or if it were, compacted stone or similar. There is some infiltration that will happen through that.
And the reason you're doing this is because if you did asphalt, you get torn up by the tracks of the loaders. So to the degree that that implies to me anyway, that sort of this would be more pervious because it's sort of being ground up or it's sort of being, I don't know, circulated all the time, as opposed to, because if you weren't doing that, you'd put asphalt in, right? So.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and I think what you're touching upon is as the construction equipment is circulating through the yard, it will kind of fluff up the soil, if you will. So it shouldn't be hard as a rock all the time. It will kind of get loosened up and churned up a little bit.
Okay. So then in the suitable transportation conditions, and you talked about how many employees are there now?
I believe they are operating out of there today, and they have roughly 30 employees.
Oh, and that does not change. The expansion of the yard is not going to change the number of employees.
Correct.
Okay.
Maybe a little under that now, maximum.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that the point is really by doing this and expanding this, there's not going to be any large change in the traffic conditions overall, other than the design and the amount of parking and that kind of thing. But the circulation and the people coming and going is about the same now. Maybe it will increase slightly, but it's not like, we have this small operation now and it's becoming 3 times as large. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I think the final question I have is just the whole issue, in the environmental section, you talk a lot about the wetlands issues, stormwater, water runoff and all that, which is great. But you don't talk at all about the vegetation or wildlife. Commissioner Millet also already I think ask a question. Pretty much the eastern side of the property is going to be left largely as is, correct?
Yes.
And that's just a buffer and wooded and as is now. It's really the western side where there's a lot of change. The staff memo mentions that there's no real, there's no real calculation of trees and vegetation lost, how much is being put back with the buffering and so forth. Do you have some numbers on that?
So we don't have necessarily hard numbers on that, but we really did, through the inland wetlands process, we've planted out just about as much as we can around the development areas to restore as much of that vegetation as possible, while still maintaining adequate sight lines for safety and maintaining the form and functionality of the stormwater management system. So as I mentioned, one of the conditions of approval from inland wetlands was to add back in wetland buffer plantings between the yard space and the wetlands. There was a specific requirement for species types, and we went through a little more discussion on number and area. And really the intent is to fit as much vegetative value back in as possible. So it primarily is that the yard space on that plan west, I think that's the southern side of the site, try to fit as much as possible there. And then we do have more of the shade trees as you look towards the parking lot and street area to provide more of that, the shade benefits, the cooling, things of that nature. So we are trying to maximize the developable area as we can, and still retain a lot of the existing vegetation where possible.
Okay. And what's the current condition of wildlife in these?
So this area does have, it's kind of a transitional forest area right now. It very clearly was clear cut in the history. A lot of the trees aren't very large in nature, and there's not a lot of undergrowth here. It's a lot of the trees are very similar in age, so it speaks very much to it was cleared at one point, and then at some point somebody just decided to let it go. And in a lot of those environments, the wildlife benefit tends to be much more restricted because wildlife really needs that variety of vegetation types, heights, sizes, things of that nature, really to provide shelter for a lot of the smaller animals that may be along the ground. But then as you build up in the larger species, larger stories, whether it could be nesting habitats for birds of prey or similar, they need different ages of trees, different species, a lot of the undergrowth to provide shade and shelter. So because that is lacking here, there really isn't a huge wildlife benefit in this area. There certainly is more of that as you head back to the wetlands, but it really does get very limited as you head into the main portions where we're proposing development.
I'm just worried about the corridor effect, losing some of that corridor, but I understand what you're saying. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Marshall Neely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of my questions, excuse me, have been addressed, but I do have, I want to ask a clarifying question to the staff regarding signage. Do you normally request that the proposal has some kind of signage where some sign outside says what kind of building it is, or what kind of business it is?
It's not a requirement, but it would be wise to just get it, through the commission now as a site plan if they're proposing a freestanding sign. Just because if, they would have to come back for a site plan review just for a freestanding sign. So just to ensure that it meets the requirements for location, height. But
Okay.
if sometimes they're not ready to submit it. They don't have the design. They're not too sure of, what design they'd like. So it's kind of hard. And I understand. I believe they weren't ready to provide us with a business sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to walk back to the sidewalk discussion. And I wrote down 30 employees, and your hours of operation will be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anytime during the day, do you think maybe a couple of employees might want to go out and walk?
Given the proposed use here, it's very unlikely, given it's a contractor yard. So most of the employees here, they will be coming in first thing in the morning. They may be, picking up their equipment or filling up, whether it's a soil material or similar. And then they're leaving the site and going to a formal construction site. It could be a paving job here in town. It could be somewhere an hour, 2 hours away. And the vast majority of employees will not be spending much time on the site. They'll be coming in, parking their personal vehicle, picking up a company vehicle and leaving the site. So that certainly is part of the factor why we feel the waiver may make sense, certainly from a micro standpoint. The macro, obviously, we discussed a little bit, but we feel there's very low likelihood that any employees from the site would be walking or riding a bike around this area.
Okay. I do agree that the chicken and egg. I do agree that, if we're going to do something, we should plan for it now, as opposed to having to go back and readdress it So would that be something that you would be hesitant with if the waiver isn't approved?
It certainly would be a challenge for us to fit the sidewalks throughout both frontages, given the restrictions we have with the narrow right-of-way, with the wetland area and the stormwater basins.
Okay, well, those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Commissioner Bolton.
The joy of being last, Mr. Chair. All my technical questions have been answered. Assistant Building Director Loriana, does the town of Bloomfield have any policy in place for trees that are removed and being replanted elsewhere throughout the town, like the city of Hartford does?
So we do have a regulation for existing vegetation. And I think this came up at the last public hearing with the verbiage on that. While the intent, I believe, was to replace them, the regulation wasn't clear on that. It states that any trees that are significant trees that are to remain must be noted on the site plan. And I believe that under the conditions of approval, I stated that the significant trees to be removed were marked, but not the ones that are to remain. And so that would be missing. All this, it would have to be preserved. And if damaged, then replaced. And if it couldn't be replaced, then you would have to replace them elsewhere.
Yes, understood. We do have, our survey does show all of the significant trees. I believe our demolition plan does show the ones to be removed. And that was actually a comment that came up in inland wetlands as well, as providing protection. So we do include details in our plan set that show what the tree protection looks like. And I believe we have a note on the plans that says if trees are damaged or destroyed, that they do need to be replaced. And I believe it's a match for the caliper to the maximum extent practicable.
And that would be great, but if the revised plan can actually show, the significant trees on the plan to be preserved.
Sure, we can do
Be
that. Yeah.
required. Thank you.
To the applicant, is this the only storage/staging location that Burns Construction has for their operations overall?
They do have, I believe it's, well, John, do you want to respond to that?
They're a company out of Stratford.
Okay.
So I know they have one facility down there, and I apologize, I don't have their other ones, but their intent is as they get more business in the northern central part of the state, they need someplace here so they're not taking equipment from Stratford to Bloomfield or Windsor or Enfield. And so that's the intent here. And kind of goes to the question that you had about the employees. The employees come, they pick up their stuff, and they work at job sites, not in the building. There might be just a couple people at maximum in the building, I believe, if anyone. So because their headquarters is in Stratford, that's where all their accounting and administration is.
So I'm assuming they own all their equipment, or
Yeah,
80% or-
however it works. Sometimes they leave,
and they're most likely staged overall out in Stratford, and so
that's their main
the-
location.
the capacity here that you're going to have for both material storage and equipment storage will be suitable today for their current capacity.
When they were looking for a site, they felt that this would satisfy their needs. I don't think, not just for today, but for their business needs going forward.
And based on the wetland restrictions, do you have the ability to develop further? And is that
I think it would be a challenge to do anything more on this site. And then, as Tim pointed out, the way, that contractor yard is going to be sort of hemmed in, fenced in. There's going to be a physical barrier, then there's going to be all the new plantings. And obviously we can't mess with the detention basin, so you're kind of looking at a almost, max build out scenario for this site. Yeah, and they, when we started, they're like, we don't need any more building space. We need some place to park our trucks, to be somewhat flip, but that's really what they're looking for. And they understand that, you know, as part of redeveloping this site, they have to do all the things, the stormwater upgrades, the landscaping, you know, and bringing it up to code.
One last question. You said they were a roadway contractor. Are they roadway only, or do they do utility work as well?
I think it's really mainly roads and maybe some utility like sewers, but it's big projects for DOT. And I apologize, they have a general counsel who's involved in the project. He couldn't be here. I'm more zoning guy, so.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. One quick question for staff. I noticed they didn't submit a lighting plan, and I just wanted to know if the staff is satisfied with the current lighting would be adequate for the current structure in addition to the new structure?
I believe we requested that they submit a lighting plan. Even if it's existing, we'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's our understanding that, you know, there's lights on the building, but there's no intent to put lights in the contractor's yard. And we haven't been asked, you know, Tim, when we're going through that planning phase, new lighting in the parking lot wasn't, you know, requested by the applicant. So, but we can have that as a condition of approval, so we can show what's on the building and what's currently there, and if there's anything.
And Linda,
That's part of the conditions of approval, is for you to submit a lighting plan.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. At this time, we'll take any comments from the audience. Anyone have any comments regarding this application? And if you can check online, see if there's anyone online. No comments. All right, we'll start with the commission. We'll start at the other end. Commissioner Bolton, any comments?
Now first. I guess not to the applicant, but just to remind the commission that I think we should definitely require or stipulate some sort of material height restriction. These stockpiles can actually get pretty high. And so just from my own experience, so we should definitely have that incorporated. So that's it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Marshall Neely.
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Bolton. I also think that maybe we want to think about the materials that are stored there and put conditions on there so that no other materials other than what was stated in here would be allowed to be stored there. So we're talking about the height and we're talking about where it's stored, but you know, if someone else purchases that building, we want to maybe put it in place so that these are the only materials that can be stored there, you know? And there was one other thing I wanted to. I can't think of it. I didn't write it down. That's what happens when you're 25. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I certainly agree about the height, and I guess I would ask ultimately what our staff recommends for that in terms of, I was a little surprised with the six, I know exactly the wall structure because I've gone to these places and bought mulch or something, you know, whatever. So I was a little surprised that from a 6-foot sort of base, it could get up to 15 feet before you had phase change and things went down. But whatever, I think that, I don't think we have a huge concern other than just having a max so that it can't get beyond a certain amount. And I would look to staff to recommend something that would be a condition of approval. I also, just glancing through it, I don't think we have a condition of approval in there in terms of marking. It's mentioned in the staff report, but I'm not sure we have a requirement that they mark the significant trees in the final map. And I guess I am a little confused. I know that the Conservation, Energy, and Environment Committee is going to take up looking at that ordinance again and passing it on to us. But I think from what you said, if they take down significant trees and don't replace the caliber with some of the buffer area, they would have to do it. They would have to provide trees somewhere else. Is that correct? That's the impression I'm getting from you.
That was not my understanding. Did the Inland Wetlands Commission impose a condition? I'm not sure. I think
No,
that they
it's-
wanted them to provide a buffer between the wetlands and the development.
Right,
But not, yep.
yeah, the condition of approval for wetlands was to add vegetation between yeah, where Jordan's showing like on the,
wetland.
around the edge of the yard. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with significant trees. That's not their regulation. They were
Right.
looking
Sure.
more towards, providing native wetlands or wetlands adjacent species, because that's an upland review area. And so they just wanted that more densely planted to provide a buffer between the active area and the wetlands.
Yeah.
And provide that mix of vegetation that Tim talked about for the wildlife. So you'll have more bushes than you have now.
So, and that's fine. As Commissioner James has pulled up our regulation, and I thought what was said a minute ago is if they took down trees of significant caliber and did not replace those, and replacing those could be in the buffer area, obviously. Suited tree location is not available on the site. Replacement should be planted at a location within town designated by commissioner or its agent. And I think that's what you had said earlier. And
It's my understanding that regulation, so when you have a site like this, you have to mark all your significant
Right.
trees. And you have to show the commission, we're gonna take these significant trees down. And we're gonna protect these other significant trees. So everything, the significant ones in the white area where the yard is, those are coming out. We will mark the ones that are slated to remain. And the way the regulation reads is if we designated, this tree over here to remain, but during construction, we backed into it and knocked it over, then we have to replace it. But the regulation does not require us to replace every significant tree that is intended to come out. And that's, I believe, is how the regulation is written.
I guess that we're not going to obviously solve that tonight.
Okay.
And I understand there's some vagueness in this regulation at this point. I think that we just want a condition of approval that they will, comply with this, and we'll get, legal opinion on that. It'd go from there. So this is really not your fault,
No,
not your fault. We're just trying to hash that out. And I guess my only other comment is, on the sidewalk part, I do understand, and I think the commission will grant the waiver. But I am wondering, because we keep going through this process, just as a general comment, maybe what the commission should do, and in coordination, not as included in the plan of conservation development, because we want to get that done. But maybe one of the things we should undertake is to designate some areas where we think it would be good to build connectivity. And again, the only reason I really bring it up in this site is because, Northwood Drive is very much contractor area, but the area on Blue Hills, we hope to be more of a commercial area. You mentioned walking paths. Our town engineer, since he started, I know has made a walking path from the back of the DPW area down to Samuel Wheeler Reed Park. So, there are possibilities here. So I think that's something the commission may want to undertake so that we have a better idea of when we should require these things and when we shouldn't. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner James.
Yeah, I appreciate the thoroughness of the applicant's application. I am kind of disappointed in the sidewalk waiver. I mean, there is a school nearby. I could imagine, people want to take a loop around during lunch or before or after school. So while we can't envision it today, it's not that it's impossible for something like that to happen. But I mean, I'm going to pick my battles, and this is not one of those. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
I'm going to take a little different take on the sidewalk, and I've been in this business a while, and, you know, if we keep saying we're not gonna put a sidewalk because there's no other sidewalk there, we'll never have one. So you have to take a stand someplace. And if I'm riding a bicycle on there and I found my way there, wouldn't it be great if a triaxle truck is coming down the road loaded with asphalt, that I had an area of refuge and I could get off the road? Or do we have a handicap van that may be coming there for an employee, that they would like that somebody would like a place to stand and wait? So I can definitely see a need for establishing a policy that we're gonna move from an auto-dependent, vehicle-dependent society, and we're gonna start and recognize the need to have complete streets. And if the commission wasn't going to support full sidewalks there, I would argue strongly that we ought to provide the right-of-way for the sidewalk, and that ought to be cleared. And so that, I walk many rural roads in the town of Bloomfield, and there are places where there is no area of refuge. And if you get a FedEx truck and a UPS truck trying to pass one another, and you're on that street as a pedestrian, you're looking to get out of the way of them. And if we did nothing else, we could provide a right-of-way that's cleared, maybe was gravel, but we can't simply say there's no sidewalk there, so therefore we're not going to have a sidewalk. I would not vote for a sidewalk waiver.
Thank you. Commissioner Millet.
I do like the idea of maybe reserving some space. I would not be in favor of forcing, was it 5-foot concrete or what is it, 8-foot multi-use path? It's just not connected to anything. I think it falls within our waivers. So I would be in favor of providing the waiver. The other conditions, I think I'm okay with, combining the lots, establishing the maximum height. Yeah, it's already in the recommended conditions for the light plan, even though it's probably not changing. The update to making sure the plan shows the significant trees, and whether they're designated for destruction or saving. And then also noting on what we are approving, the types of materials, which I think it was represented as sandstone, and whatever highway material is, I would assume that's some kind of soil or aggregate of some sort related to the highway. But the big thing would be no storage of hazardous materials. Other than that, I'm fully in support of the project.
Okay, thank you. I don't have much more to add. I think the commission is pretty much made their case on this. I'm okay with the waiver for the sidewalk. I also can agree to establishing a right-of-way. So either one of those I'm flexible with. But other than that, I have nothing else to add. So at this time, if you want to make any closing remarks before we close this public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regard to your comments, I would just ask you to consider or reconsider, I don't know how, the idea about limiting the materials to be stored. I mean, we asked our client specifically, and, you know, it's their intention, sand, stone, the highway debris material, maybe some aggregate. But to Tim's point, anything that's regulated isn't going to be, it has to go to a licensed processing facility. So our client would be in a lot more trouble, not with just this commission, but with DEP, maybe EPA, if they brought anything that has to be handled in a certain way to this site. And as I said, they're an established contractor. They're not going to do anything like that. But they may, want to have wood chips one day. Or they also sometimes store like, and I don't know if this is what you were thinking of, like they might store a whole bunch of catch basins, like the pre-cast concrete, they might have 50 of them if they're doing a road. And those might be stored as they start, that they can't have on site, or concrete pipes or things like that, that are being staged that you can't leave, on the side of I-95, on I-91, when you're doing the work. You have to leave them somewhere. You pick them up in the morning, you bring what you need, and the rest are stored on site during the course of that project. So I would ask that you not, put handcuffs on this, that we can't store, any kind of building materials or anything that's really non-toxic on the site. We understand the height limitation, but, just to just be a stone and gravel, storage space, I think is a little limiting. Because I know they do store, like I said, materials that go into their projects. And I remember specifically, they talked about precast concrete catch basins, things like that. So that's my point on the materials. I think everything else all seemed, reasonable to me on behalf of my client. So I really don't have anything else. I'm very happy for your attention and your thoughtful comments and concerns about this. We think this will actually be a benefit to the town. It'll take sort of an underused parcel and in a area that's meant for this type of development, and bring in a reputable state, locally owned business. And we'll make a good use of this these lots. And so we had asked that you would approve it with the conditions mentioned by the staff, but without a limitation on what can be stored there beyond, anything that's toxic, which we
Mr. Chair,
understand.
can I ask the applicant a question?
Question?
Well, I guess just considering the waiver, the sidewalk waiver, would they be open to providing that area of refuge?
It's nothing we discussed, so I don't have an answer that I can say is what they would want. I kind of feel they would agree with me and the engineer that it's a very tough site to get a sidewalk on, and it's very unlikely, that they feel that it would be of use to the public or to their employees. So we would ask that the waiver be granted as requested.
Well, I'm saying if the waiver is granted,
Yeah.
are you open to having some area?
Oh, like a little
Yeah.
step in? I suppose it's something we could look at. I mean, there'll definitely be, between the driveways, that's going to be now a more, appropriately landscaped area, grass, that'll clearly be a place someone could step to. As you said, we're not trying to do too much. You have the sort of the two sides on the corner of West Dudleytown, and the first part of as you go down Northwood, we're trying to leave that as is. We don't want to disturb it. So we don't want to do, we don't want to do more cutting or clearing. So we would want to leave that as is. The only place, and we're trying to leave most of the front boundary as is, and then fill behind it with vegetation as a buffer. So we're trying not to disturb the appearance of the roadway. So there might be a few places where we could do a little cutting, I guess, but we don't want to cut any significant trees. We're trying to minimize that clearing as much as possible. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask staff if they can work with you on that.
Sure.
And see if there's something that they can come up with to satisfy a simulation of a right of way.
Okay, I will talk to the town engineer.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't have to take up the sidewalk waiver tonight. We can approve it without addressing the sidewalk waiver and come back with what would it look like? if we
Yeah,
had a right of way?
I'm gonna let staff work with them on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing further. Again, thank you for your time and questions, and we ask you to approve the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, Chair, entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose, abstention, chair votes aye. Chair will now entertain a motion on this application.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the request by Burns Construction Company, Inc. for a special permit and site plan application to allow a site development for a contractor's yard with outdoor storage as accessory use with the conditions stipulated in the staff report dated August 25th, 2025, with the additional request that staff recommend a maximum height for material storage on the premise. I believe that was it. The trees, go ahead and,
Significant trees need to be added to the,
and that the significant trees be marked, I believe,
Right,
marked on the
absolutely.
final plan resubmission.
and
Writing.
You gotta,
Just include all the staff comments
that's what I did.
from the memo.
I did.
And let's not interject with his motion.
That's it.
Can I just ask for clarification? Clarification, you're not including sidewalk waiver at this time.
I was going to ask, at a later point, when you ask for any additional questions, the procedural question of how are we going to incorporate that into this approval? Is a separate approval needed?
Right.
So I don't have that answer. That's a procedural question.
I believe that the commission has to vote, agree or at least give the waiver prior to approving this, I believe. No?
I don't believe so. The sidewalk waiver can be granted at any time.
Okay.
You can approve the project and be silent on the waiver, and they could work with you, and they could bring it back.
The regulation states that if, the applicability of that section is whenever someone is submitting a site plan application, that they would have to request that waiver. So if the commission is going to approve a site plan, you want to remain silent on the waiver and come back?
Yes.
If that is what the commission would like to agree, then it should probably be noted in the approval that the site plan special permit and site plan was approved, and that the waiver, that the applicant will come back at a later time with the waiver or decision will be
Yes.
made.
Sure.
Okay.
So it was my understanding
Amended.
that this motion did not include
Yes. So
the
amended
sidewalk waiver. And so I did not, the motion that I read did not, it was not my understanding, nor my desire to incorporate that into this motion. And so I did expect that to be a separate motion and review and or discussion and then the vote for approval. But it's not, it definitely isn't clearly written in this motion that I read that the sidewalk waiver was incorporated. So
Okay,
is someone going
we're-
to add that as an amendment, or would you like me to add that?
Yes, just include that in there. We're going to approve it.
To the motion.
We're going to
that-
approve it without the waiver, and we're going to have Linda work with the applicant on establishing either a right-of-way or some sort of waiver, and then we'll come back and deal with that.
Would you like to add that as a friendly amendment?
Sure.
So added.
With that amendment, I'll second the motion.
I accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose, abstention, Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Congratulations. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a withdrawal. Applicant withdrew the pending text amendment application to remove existing sections 4.7.c.4.c and 4.7.d.4.b and amend existing language in section 4.cb notes -1 on the zoning regulations. Applicant is LaSalle Road Companies LLC, having a legal interest in land in Bloomfield. Is there a motion to approve that withdrawal?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstention, chair votes aye. Next item on the agenda is an information presentation by BSC Group regarding potential affordable housing residential development at 1151 Blue Hills Avenue. Okay, would you just state your name and address? And for the sake of time, because we also have a second presentation, can the presentation be at least like between 20, 25 minutes so the commission can have an opportunity to ask some questions regarding this?
I will try to keep it shorter than that if possible.
Okay.
I'll provide as much information as I can. I'll try to keep it as short, and if you obviously have questions, by all means, we'll go from
Yeah,
there.
we figured 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll do some questions. Thank you.
Linda, am I able to share?
Did you promote him? Yep. Okay.
One moment. Hold on. There we go. Hold on. Did you promote me because I'm still just a audience member?
I see you as a, yeah.
Did I log into the incorrect meeting?
I don't see him in either as a participant. I don't, I may, just because I'm not a host, but you could probably see him.
I just left. I'm gonna try to re-log in. 1 second.
I have a mess.
Solar farm. Is that where they want to do the solar farm? No, because we're looking for this. Oh, yeah. That's gonna be back in here, I think. Oh, that's. The solar farm.
I joined the webinar through the invite. Was that the correct way to do it?
Oh, yeah.
You're shown as,
Okay.
as an attendee. You have to, let's see, I'm gonna promote you again.
Oh, yes, here it goes.
You have to accept.
There we go.
Okay.
I think I'm in now. All right. There we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. For the record, my name is Francis Vaca. I am a professional engineer at the BSC Group in Glastonbury, Connecticut. I am here this evening to provide an introductory presentation informally to the commission for on behalf of the First Cathedral located at 1151 Blue Hills Avenue for a property master plan, potentially in support of a zoning map amendment for the potential improvements associated with their property that they would like to pursue. This evening, I have, we are not all here, but I have a few members of the project team. First, we have from First Cathedral, we have Pastor Leroy Bailey III is the executive pastor of the First Cathedral. From Grow America, we did have a few members online. I'm not sure that they were there, but other members of the team, Matt Wexler, Marion Campbell, Jeffrey Pearson, who is here in person, and Niloy Thakar from Grow America, who are providing additional support with regard to the affordable housing component of the master plan that I will speak about momentarily. I myself from BSC Group, I am the site engineer and permitting engineer associated with the project. We also have the architect, representatives from Paul P. Bailey Architect. Susan Odell was planning to be here. Unfortunately, she had an emergency immediately prior to the meeting. I'm going to do my best to present her portion. I am not an architect, so please bear with me on that one. I do have some notes, and I will go through them as best as I could. And also not here this evening, but as part of the team associated with the development is David Markowitz, Esquire, a partner from Hassett and George. He is the land use attorney. We'll be providing support. At the time, we are hoping to come obviously next month to formally present the presentation to you for the development. Meeting agenda tonight, I'm going to ask Pastor Bailey to come up and just give a very brief background on the First Cathedral and the desires that they have with regard to the development. I'll go through some quick existing conditions of the site just to refamiliarize anyone in the commission that may not be aware. And then obviously review in detail the desire for the zoning map amendment to the Design Development Zone 2, DDZ2, some of the zoning considerations associated with it and how they relate to the overall master plan for the property. And then I will go through the three components of the master plan on the property in detail: the affordable housing and community daycare component, the empowerment center component, which Pastor Bailey will speak a little bit more about what the empowerment center is, and then a proposed storage facility and auxiliary parking component, which will be the last of the phases for the development. At this point, I would like to ask Pastor Bailey to come up and just introduce himself.
Yes, if you can just state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Leroy Bailey III from the First Cathedral. I'm the executive pastor there, 1151 Blue Hills Avenue in Bloomfield. Just thank you for this opportunity, first of all, to come in front of the commission. We have been in existence for over 55 years and have been a member of Bloomfield community for over 26 years. When we bought the property, we bought 40 acres of land in which we wanted to build a future and develop it. Over these past I want to say about 5 years, we have had dream nights and community nights to say, where do we want to go as a facility and where do we want to, well, what do we want to do to develop our land? Tonight, I'm excited for you to see what we are planning, would like to do. And hopefully we'll have some good questions from you and that we can answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. To briefly review the existing site for those that are familiar with it, let me see if you can see my cursor here. All right. I'm sure a number of the commissioners are aware of the First Cathedral. It is the one that's located at the corner of Blue Hills Avenue and Wintonberry Avenue. It's the large circular cathedral with the main entrance that faces towards the intersection of both of those state routes. There is a rather large parking area associated with the development, but what the commission may not be or may be unaware of is that the actual property is 40 acres and does come all the way down essentially to where the line is, where I'm identifying on my plan. So there is a southern half of the site, which is almost, which is greater than 50% wetlands at this point. But there are two smaller pockets where we have on the southwestern side of the property is an auxiliary parking area with 552 parking spaces and direct access onto Route 187. And then there is a small field complex that is a few tennis courts and a small softball field that is also a component on the property of the church. And if we move on to the next, the view you're actually looking at here is, even though it's a little bit shaded back, this is actually a drone ortho photo of the site. So it is a true, accurate horizontal representation of exactly how the site is in, now this was in January of 2025. We did fly this, and the point behind that was we now have accurate information on the entire planimetric, all of the horizontal area associated with the site, so that when designing the master plan, we had the most amount of information to provide the most detailed background and information for the proposed master plan throughout the entire site. We could essentially plan for any type of building or layout or so on that the church would like to pursue. So I wanted to provide that just to show we will have a formalized A2 T2 survey, but to go with that, we also have the ability to have ortho photos directly related to the site in its current condition. The property line is identified here in magenta, so you can see the overall. It does, the flight area is actually not the entire 40 acres because there's the very bottom of the site is essentially all wetland area. In fact, the wetlands on the site are represented here in green, and you can see the two pockets on either side. So this is the field complex. You can't really see my cursor. As you can see the field complex. Let me switch to my other cursor. You can see the field complex on the southwest, and then this is the auxiliary parking area on the south east, and then the main church complex here with the main parking associated with that. There is also a conservation easement recorded on the land record, which has very strict requirements associated with what can or cannot be built within the conservation restriction areas. So beneficially, the entire development design that we are proposing is entirely located outside of the conservation easement area. And I would further like to indicate that all of the proposed development is smaller in total footprint than the previous impacts, in particular associated with the auxiliary parking area, so reducing impervious coverage. And then we are increasing coverage for the intended land, for the field area. However, the field area is not utilized to its fullest potential, and it is actually, to my understanding in previous conversations, it's become more of a hindrance to the cathedral at this point. They've had to deal with a lot of issues as a result of the vandalism and so on associated with the uses of the field. I also would like to bring up, and one of the main components of the reason why we're presenting for you this evening is currently the site is split into two different zones. The yellow identified here is PO zone, and then it's the R15 zone in the red. The rather strange, complicated dividing line between the two. There was a potential development, I believe, at some point in the past there. They had modified the zoning for the intention of moving forward with this development. Well, the development fell through, although the zoning had already changed. But we've done an extensive review with town staff since January or so to kind of go through the different options and the different zone potential that we could use for all of the various desires that the church is pursuing. And we've settled, we believe that the DDZ2 is the most appropriate zone to pursue for what they are hoping to achieve. Pardon me. I will not get into super detail with this because I can present this more obviously during the formalized meeting, but the highlight, the aerial view portion of the DDZ development zone, section 5.6 A of the zoning regulations. The intent, the creation of a combined work, service, and then residential environment. I'm highlighting basically the main desires that the church were trying to pursue. So the combined work, service, residential environment that promotes the maintenance of quality open space, reduces the traffic, and enhances the quality and proximity of the facilities to employees and so on. And then general for the DDZ2 zone will be governed by the master plan in accordance with these regulations. And what we'd hope to do is over this presentation and the formal presentation, hopefully next month, is to prove to you that we have satisfied all of those requirements. Bulk requirements for the DDZ2 zone would be a 10-acre lot area. We have 40 acres, so we've satisfied that. The lot width, frontage, and side yards, we're substantially over that given the size of the property. The height is 60-foot requirement, and then the maximum stories is 5 for the DDZ2 zone. We are proposing 5-story affordable housing buildings. We will get to that momentarily. I know that there will be question with regard to heights and so on, but we believe that we have addressed that with the locations that we have placed them on the site. And then for principal uses and structures, again, we wanted to focus on for those uses that the church is hoping to pursue, authorized by site plan. So we're proposing category 2, medical clinic or facility, and that's associated with the empowerment center. That's the closest office relation to the empowerment center, and they can speak more about that. Category 5, land use type, it's churches, obviously, because of the cathedral, schools, and daycare facilities. We are proposing a community daycare center as part of the development. And then category 7, multifamily dwelling units, provided that the maximum number of dwelling units is permitted at 16 per acre. We have satisfied that requirement. I will get into more of that during the formal presentation. And in category 8, accessory uses to those permitted, including without limitation storage facilities, which is the final phase of their hopeful master plan. Now, with all of that, here's an enlargement of the existing property, the drone survey. And this is essentially what is being proposed for the overall master plan. I know it's super tiny. We're going to go over all of the different components in detail. So on the southeastern portion is the affordable housing and community daycare component, category 7 and 5. I'll talk about this momentarily. The First Cathedral and Empowerment Center. So the cathedral stays the same, but there's a minor addition that is essentially appended onto the corner of the cathedral, which will address the office portion of the Empowerment Center. And then the final stage of the proposed master plan is an auxiliary parking area to account for some of the parking associated, some of the parking that has been removed from the auxiliary lot that is going away. And then the accessory storage, which is a 6,000 square foot storage facility simply for the use of the church facilities. They do own some transportation vehicles, buses, and so on for the purposes of currently right now it is parked outside and they would like to just store it for maintenance and so on. At this point, I am going to ask Jeffrey to step up just briefly, just talk about the desire behind the housing and daycare component, and I will review more in detail of the design of the area.
Hello, for the record, Jeff Person, Grow America. Address is 633, I'm blanking, it's in New York, it's the company address, 633 3rd Avenue, New York, 117. So Grow America, we are acting in the capacity of a development advisor for the First Cathedral. We're moving towards a co-general partnership in order to help develop the property with the church. We are a national nonprofit. We've been around for more than 60 years. We have a syndicated fund where we invest in low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits. We run a state program with the state of Connecticut, the Connecticut Small Business Boost Fund, a $150 million small business lending fund. We're developers, we're advisors for several municipalities, and we're located or working in more than 100 communities across the country. So the why for this project, why affordable housing, why daycare? When I got introduced to the church a couple of years ago, they talked to me about the plans that they were looking to do. At this point, especially in the state, in Connecticut, affordable housing, there's an acute need. In Bloomfield, I believe it's a 11% affordable housing stock, and there's been a lot of luxury development going on very, very close to here. I should also mention too that I'm a resident of Windsor, so although I work with a national firm, I'm right next door. So in terms of this plan here, it's one thing to go through the plan and draw nice pictures and that sort of thing. We're looking to build communities, but what's very important with affordable housing projects is that you work with your state and federal partners in order to make these dreams essentially come true. So we have a very good relationship with the Department of Housing. They are supporting this project. They've already made some pretty significant investments in the project, but it's very, very important that we obviously go through the process with the town to make sure everybody's on board here. So we're looking at, on the housing part, 146 units altogether. We're looking to do this in 2 different phases. The first phase is 101 units. You see that on the southernmost part of the picture here. We're looking at restricting the units at all 60% AMI units or below. So we're talking about true affordable housing here. Folks typically making less than $70,000 per year. In Grow America, we have a portfolio of investments in Connecticut, probably about 10 at this point, some in Hartford, New Britain, a few of the other communities around the state. For the second phase, so the first phase is what we're really focused on initially. That's what we're targeting to get done first. The second phase is pretty interesting. It's the L-shaped building on the northern part of the slide here. That has 45 units. But there's also a daycare component, which Frank will go over a little bit. The church currently has a daycare facility, but this is going to allow them to double the capacity potentially of the daycare. So we're really, really excited about that. But in our conversations with the potential funding partners here for the affordable housing project, we feel really, really confident about being able to get something of this scale that's done. Again, there's an acute need of affordable housing, especially in Bloomfield, Connecticut. So we're really, really excited to be a part of this endeavor.
Thank you, Jeff. If I can talk briefly about the actual site layout itself, as you can see, the red line, I know it's very hard to see on the screen, but there is the red line that was originally identified in the earlier slide with regard to the conservation easement. We are located entirely inside the conservation easement. There is no development proposed outside of it. There is also no development proposed in any of the wetland areas. We are within the wetland buffer. I will present that a little bit more in detail at the next meeting. But the one point I would like to make, again, is to reiterate, all of the green space that you see, the lighter green space along the majority of the buildings, building A, building B, a lot of this green space, the majority of that currently now is all the auxiliary parking area. So we will be pulling back a substantial amount of impervious just through the development of what is being proposed on the screen at this point. As far as some specifics of it, so building A, obviously to the south, building B, there is a large terrace in between that will interconnect the two of them, public amenity space. And this space will also be usable, obviously, by the members of building C. The playground is associated with the community daycare. As far as site circulation and so on, we thought about that in detail to ensure, because it is community and because it's not dedicated to just this development or to the church, we wanted to ensure that it was fair to the residents as much as possible. So because it is all one property, we would be essentially directing through the operations, we'd be directing the users of the community daycare would essentially enter through the church parking lot, and they would cross through the minor bridge crossing from the church proper down through here, and they would make a loop around to I believe this is a 14 space drop-off area. So they can immediately drop their children off and get back out. The spaces associated with this row of parking is dedicated to the community daycare as well. There are 251 spaces in total associated with this development. I don't remember the exact number, but I believe we were proposing 19 for the daycare, which is not explicitly in the regulation, but is we still have adequate capacity given all of the latest statutes associated with 1 and 2 bedroom housing to ensure that we have satisfied all of the parking for that. Dumpster area is located over here away from any of the main building areas. And then obviously one of the most important things is we are, because they are 5-story buildings, we are at the closest point at Building C, about 250 feet from Blue Hills Avenue and any vista associated with associated residential views or anything like that. In addition to, the main reason I put the large amount of greenery and trees, these are all existing trees associated with the wetlands area. None of these are being removed. We do have existing entries onto Blue Hills Avenue already with adequate traffic capacity and so on. So we are not proposing major reductions, if any of the existing trees, to assure that we are screening as much of the development as possible to any of the associated residence areas. Oh, let me go back one second. So the two red arrows that you see will represent the renderings that we have provided for the building. So the first one will be the southernmost arrow, which will show buildings A and B. And then the second rendering will be the second arrow identifying the front portion of the community daycare in building C. These are the buildings, if you would bear with me momentarily. This is a bit of information that we got from Susan Odell from Paul Bailey. I will read some of her notes for this. Again, unfortunately, she apologized for not being able to be here. So the design of phase one buildings includes lively colors and warm tones that blend in well with the natural surroundings with pops of blue and emphasize the entrances as identified down on this bottom portion here. The design breaks down the size and creates visual interest by varying the planes of the facade with projecting bays identified here. So in other words, it doesn't look like one great big giant factory. And then the different colors and material textures also add to the visual variety defined and subtle horizontal bands that are stepped throughout. So that is the main building A, which is this building, and then this is a portion of building B. This is building C, so this is, again, 5-story. You can see where the majority, so that this upper level and then this main entrance here is associated with the residential portion, whereas the first 2 stories and this large entry area here is associated with the daycare center. So essentially this ground portion and the entry is, again, the daycare. And then coming again from Susan here, Phase 2 includes a large 2-story daycare center that is integrated with a 5-story residential building. Same warm colors are used here, and the building is angled to decrease its apparent size. That's why it has that shape. And the horizontal banding is made more prominent to add variety to the overall site design, while emphasizing the daycare location as a prominent, more, I say commercial, but it's more of a, focused that's separate from the residential portion. At this point, I'm going to jump into the next phase, which is the Empowerment Center, so this is the first cathedral is existing. The Empowerment Center is the portion that is identified here in yellow. And if I could please have Pastor Bailey come, he just explain a little bit more about what the Empowerment Center is proposing.
Sure, to keep it high level. Basically, we're running out of space at the current facility in terms of classrooms and things we want to do. We've been giving away clothes. We have a boutique, and we have food pantries, and also we've been doing counseling. And we noticed the need for more counseling. So our Empowerment Center will be a place for counseling, a place for the community to come, a place where we can do workshops to empower our community.
Thank you, Pastor. Because it is a defined separate entrance and so on, we have defined a new main entry point here. So the addition uses materials color. The design follows existing radii of the existing grand circular building, but our addition is much lower and is broken down into a step shape to maintain the prominence importance of the church building. So although the church is substantially higher, if I can flip to the next image here. So it's not a rendering, but it's basically the elevations view. So it basically matches the existing shape of the current cathedral, but it's only 2 stories tall, and it is with the main entrance to ensure there is a prominent entryway into the Empowerment Center directly. The only major changes that occurred with, I know this has all been rendered, but the only major change that occurred is associated with the parking directly right here. This used to be a dumpster area. We've converted that. The dumpster has been shifted to another open space on this side, and this is now adequate parking. We are not increasing or decreasing parking in the area for the First Cathedral. The Empowerment Center essentially will function separately and at completely separate times from the church, so they can equally share parking without any detriment to either use. And then the final phase, and I've presented all of these phases in order. So the starting phase, phase A, would be all of the initial housing. So buildings A and B of the housing, then it would be building C, then we would move on to the Empowerment Center. And this is what we were proposing for the last component. We don't have any time frame associated with this. We're going to kind of follow that sequence that is essentially what the church is hoping to provide. Is a 6,000 square foot storage facility. We don't have an architectural design on this yet, but we are more than willing to work with the town and work with the community to ensure that it's the most appropriate for what is being proposed. And then it is essentially just a parking area that will provide auxiliary parking to make up some of the spaces that were lost associated with the reduction in the 552 spaces that are removed. This also makes up a component of the parking requirement associated with the church due to its size. That being said, and I'll present this more during the formal meeting, we are, through all the development, we are still satisfying the requirements of the zoning regulations from a parking standpoint. There is not going to be a time when there will be a deficiency. We have a path forward to achieve satisfactory parking throughout the entire development process, the entire master plan development process. I tried to keep it as short as possible. Now, obviously, I'd like to turn it over for any questions, and definitely we would love to take any input, feedback from the commission. We would like to come back in next month to present on behalf of, formally on behalf of the church for the request for the zoning map amendment. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Very nice overview. We'll start with Commissioner Millette. If you have any questions or comments.
I don't think I have any major concerns from, what was presented. Generally, it's exciting to see the type of affordable housing development being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Yeah, I just like you to clarify for me, because you keep talking about 5 buildings, but I see 3 structures. So where are the 5 buildings?
So it's the first phase will be 3 of the housing and daycare. Then the fourth building will be the Empowerment Center. It is technically a component of the main church. So
Okay.
it's essentially just an addition. And then the fifth building, is the small storage facility associated with development. So those are the 5 buildings.
Okay, and the other question was, when you talked about the 2 southern buildings, you said they were at 60% of AMI, and you never told us what the other building was going to be at.
Jeff.
Yeah, so our intent is for the site to be all affordable, but at this time, when we're talking with the various subsidy providers, we can only do so much at a time. So we're looking at different programs for Building C, which again, at this point is 45 units. We would very much so like there to be affordable housing there. But again, we're focused on the first phase, which is 101 of the units out of 146.
So the third building could be at market rate?
It could be at market, but the thing is, market is very hard to pencil out from an economic feasibility standpoint. Very, very difficult to do. So,
Or it might be at 80% rather than 60%?
it all depends on the various funding sources that we're looking at, but our intent what would be the easiest would be affordable housing, but
The
we're,
only other question I've had is whether you're architect, and they're not here, so maybe it's just a question to take back, but if you guys have incorporated the concept of defensible space into your units, which is basically come out in terms of residents must have some sense of security and defensible space, and we want to avoid like long corridors that residents don't know who those people are in the corridors. So I haven't seen your interior layouts, and I'm sure you haven't even got that far, but I would just ask you to look into that concept and to try to incorporate it.
Definitely, we got that.
I took a note. I don't have that information directly. We do have some of the interiors flushed out, but I will definitely bring up the defensible space as a potential to discuss with the team as we move this forward and
Thank you.
Prior to our formal presentation. Thank you.
Commissioner James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, of the 101 units, those would be deed restricted affordable units.
Yes.
For how long? For what duration of time?
So under the program, it's actually my first public hearing, so this is pretty exciting. For the record, Jeff Person, I'm supposed to say that. So for the first phase, it's going to be at least 30 years. That's by the low-income housing tax credit program, which is run out of the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. Sometimes it's longer, but minimum has to be 30 years.
And do you have a sense of like what the mix of bedrooms would be?
Yeah, we actually have that broken down.
You know what, I don't have it directly in front of me. We have a full mix. I tried to keep it as high a profile as possible, that we have all the information. If you want me a second, I can get it for you, but it's one of those.
I guess just overall, is it like mostly studio one bedroom or is it more?
Yeah, it's a mixture. When we spoke to the town a couple of years ago, they had indicated, the mayor at that time, I think she might still be the mayor, that she wanted to see some 3 bedrooms. So for the first phase, we have 5 3-bedrooms out of the 101 units, but the majority of the units are 1s and 2s, and maybe 2 studios out of the 101 units. So large concentration, 1 2s and 5 3s out of the 101 units.
Great, thank you. And maybe it's just like visually, that looks like a lot of parking. That's the minimum amount, or?
This is for the lower
Yes.
portion?
Yes, excuse me.
No, that's a problem. It is the exact amount. Let me go up to the actual main portion of that. That is the exact amount that you would need to satisfy the requirements associated with the state statutes on the latest versions of 1 and 2 bedroom housing. We have argued in the past the ability to have to reduce the parking, to request parking waivers. Because we had, so there's 251 identified here. There were 552 on the original site. So essentially what we were doing is, given the size that we have, how much can we pull it down to exactly satisfy what we need? So that is what we've done with this. We have not investigated potentially reducing beyond that, given the fact that we had enough space to account for it. Also, besides the fact that we are substantially reducing the impervious cover. In fact, I haven't finalized this with the town engineer yet, but I'm proposing, because of the reduction, and we have to complete the calculations, but as far as the stormwater system, I don't know that a detention would be required. I believe there's already adequate detention provided for the stormwater system because of the initial parking lot design. Now, we will be adding substantial water quality treatment to this, but to answer your question directly, we have not pursued anything less than this, but it could be examined if possible. But, you know, we felt for what is being proposed and for the reduction in impervious and coverage that we are providing, that providing the correct number was adequate given the amount that we were reducing it.
Great. Interesting. Thank you. I do consider myself a safe driver, but just looking at the way it's oriented, it looks like a racetrack. So just something to consider.
I totally get it. Again, and that's part of the reason why we tried to delineate the daycare portion to this area. So essentially, And this will have to be in operations, so that would be something that the daycare themselves would have to coordinate. But again, to reiterate, the users of the daycare facility will be required to enter and exit via that separate loop road to essentially, to the best of their ability, separate themselves from the residents.
Okay. And my last just comment, I guess I'm just thinking, you pointed out kind of a garbage or
Yes.
area here to the left. That kind of seems like not a lot of, I guess if I'm in building A, way in the corner, you got to bring out your trash all the way down there, kind of seems far.
Yes, it doesn't look like a lot. It's actually, this is a 40 scale drawing, so it's actually, I believe we have, I think that's 4 dumpsters worth there. And yes, I do recognize that there is a distance component to that. We can investigate if there's a possibility to basically split up the locations of the dumpsters. It's a possibility. The issue that you run into with that type of thing is now you need to provide the access for the dumpster truck to be able to get to it. But it's something that we can definitely examine as a potential, if we move a couple of spots over there, can we get the dumpster truck to get in over here? So it's definitely something I can investigate.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation, and I'm just a housing person, so I'm very excited for the increase in affordable units. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Goff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, this is an interesting project. What I really commend everyone for is, you create something, almost 30 years ago. You're looking at what works, what doesn't work, and what can be done now. So I think, this kind of change is good, and going from 552 parking spaces, which obviously aren't needed at this point because you wouldn't be getting rid of them otherwise, to 251, I think, are as rough numbers now with the conceptual design. I think this kind of thinking ahead is good. I guess I have two questions. One, you mentioned the 5-story. Obviously, that does not comply with our height regulations. I think our height, I didn't pull it up. You had it up. I didn't read it. I think our height regulations is actually a height, not a story regulation. Or no, max, I'm sorry, max, it's 5 stories.
Yep.
Okay, so
maximum.
we are okay. And the height is, so this does comply.
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said earlier it did not, and I saw the 60-foot. Okay. I guess my other question is, so currently the property, you showed the zoning map, there's a current zoning. You have an R15 area and you have a professional office area. You're looking at rezoning the whole thing DDZ2. What is the current, since this currently is, I think, all church use with, ancillary land. Currently, this is all tax exempt under church property? Is that correct?
Currently it is, however, and this is part of the next presentation. As part of this, and we've already coordinated this with town staff, we will be subdividing the property. So the housing parcel will be subdivided. Essentially, it's the housing and the daycare center will be subdivided, and we have subdivided it appropriately to satisfy the zoning requirements to ensure that we are still satisfying the 16 units per acre. Because it's 40 acres, we can subdivide, it's approximately 14 acres for the housing and daycare parcel. And then the church empowerment center and the storage is going to be on a separate plus or minus 24 acre parcel. So that has already come up, and we have already addressed some of the concerns that kind of came out with regard to the fact that the church is currently tax exempt.
Okay, so let me just read back to you what I just heard.
Sure.
Because I think I get it. You're going to rezone the whole, you're going to subdivide the parcel into 2 parcels, both of which are going to be zoned DDZ2.
That is correct.
Right. And one of those parcels will be a DDZ2 zone that the church sits on with the storage facility and ancillary parking that would still retain a tax exempt status because of the church use.
That is correct.
And the other subdivided parcel would be a DDZ2 zone, but would be taxed in the normal manner the town would tax it at.
That is what I believe is what is being.
Right, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
And I would just add with affordable housing, typically there's a pilot that's requested, payment in lieu of taxes. So instead of paying full taxes, like for example, with market rate housing, you might be charging $3,000 rents, $3,500 rents. And you're able to operate that way. If we're restricting the rents down to 12, 13, 1,400 bucks, the property's not able to pay full taxes and also bring together all the financing that's necessary. So it's customary in affordable housing, and there's thousands of projects to point to, is getting a pilot. So we're actually approaching the town, we've had preliminary conversations about what that structure can look like. So yes, so the housing parcel will no longer be tax exempt. They're gonna have to pay taxes, definitely. So there's gonna be an increment there, but full taxes, even for a lot of market rate developments, that's tough. So that's where the conversation with the town happens, so that we can make sure that we're able to raise the amount of debt that we need in order to build the improvements.
And actually, Jeff, the financial piece is out of our jurisdiction.
Okay,
So we're not even involved in that.
got it.
Right, right. Thank you.
Yep.
If I may, just to add for the record, under the DDZ2 zone, you are able to subdivide the parcel as a component of the DDZ2 zone. So that is, we've been negotiating that with the town as well to determine, the appropriate way to subdivide. In other words, it will be there will be two subdivisions. We are subdividing the housing parcel, and then we will subdivide the housing parcel a second time because of the funding process. The second time you can subdivide it, it is written to the regulations that you are not required to satisfy the bulk density requirement of each individual subdivision as long as the net total still satisfies. And that will be part of the subdivision request that will ultimately come in front of the commission at some point. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marshall Neely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said you have 5 3-bedrooms, then what was it, 3 studios? I don't know, could you refresh my memory on this? How many bedrooms they're going to be in the?
Can you pause 1 second? I think I can grab that for you. And I apologize, I didn't have it directly in front of me because I would have had that. I'm sorry.
While you're looking that up.
Sure, absolutely.
The 3 bedrooms, are they going to be in building C, or, are they all going to be in one building? Are the 5 bedrooms going to be in a particular building where you have, I guess I would say, more family driven with if you have a 5-bedroom, I think, parents and children kind of thing?
I apologize, I was looking, and you were nodding. You probably should respond to that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure which building it is,
I will
but
try to find the unit mix here.
each of the 5 bedrooms, they're all gonna be in one of the buildings.
In one
In
building,
one building,
the same building?
same building, yes.
Okay. So,
And the current plan now has 2 studios for the first phase, which is 101 units. Yeah.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. As far as emergency vehicles, like a fire truck or something like that coming through, is there enough space with the parking and one of the large, a fire truck or whatever coming through there?
Yeah, so as part of our designs, what we do is we obviously we speak to the fire department. We request the largest fire apparatus for the town. And we have a program as part of our design that allows us to essentially plug all of the information for that fire truck into the design, and then basically it drives it around. It's kind of like a game, but it's true to life with regard to the size and the turning radius of the vehicle. So we have already run that, and the largest fire apparatus for Bloomfield is able to traverse all the way around that parking area. One of the reasons why, I don't want to transition back. One of the reasons why there's a larger pavement area directly adjacent to the dumpster portion is to allow for the fire truck swing around that. We haven't formally coordinated in detail with the fire department yet because we are not at the site plan stage, but as part of that and as part of prior experience with other developments I've worked on, we have adequate space to allow for the correct lengths of hose to essentially get around the corners of the building. Again, we haven't gotten through the full utility design yet. There will be adequate fire hydrants and so on placed on the site to ensure that there is adequate spacing associated with fire department connections to the buildings and so on, and to allow for adequate hose streams and et cetera. So we have coordinated all of that. It's part of the big picture plan, and it will be finalized when we are in the process of coordinating the site plan application with fire department.
Thank you for that. Correct me if I misheard, but did you say something about garages?
The storage facility that is proposed is it is a storage building that is essentially going to be flex space. It's not going to have like water utilities type of things. It's not going to have a restroom. It's essentially a storage place to provide a space for some of I believe the church has 2 shuttle buses that currently just are parked on the site. There's maintenance and there's deterioration and depreciation associated with parking their vehicles just outside. So one of the uses of the potential storage building would be to store the shuttle buses for portions of the time, but also utilize, additional storage space for various, functions or so on, storage of props or something like that they would use at the church proper and so on. They don't have a formalized plan for it yet, and it's also part of the reason why it's the last phase of the master plan. And again, to reiterate, we don't have a time frame for this yet. A lot of it is based on the process associated with receiving funding and so on. So it was a desire. It's what we're proposing, but I can definitely get more information for the formal presentation on what the potential uses of the storage facility will have.
Okay, and just for clarification, the people who live in the apartments will not have a parking garage, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, so I live in Building C and I have groceries. And I'm going to have to walk a certain distance to get to the building to bring whatever in. Okay, I was just thinking about, layman terminology for.
No, I understand.
Functionality.
I understand where you're going. I didn't recognize. Yes, no, there is not a parking garage associated with a development. And although it is not the intention of like essentially reserving spaces, it's the general. By providing the adequate number of spaces for the units in the development, the habit of people is I'm going to park as close to where I live as possible. So the general, if I live in building A, I'm going to park in building A, whereas I'm not going to park in building C. So I'm not parking in building C, so the people that live there have space. The daycare facility has dedicated parking devoted to it. There is an adequate, and it will be part of the operations for the daycare as well as the leasing office for the housing to say that this is the reserved portion for the daycare. Please, residents, please don't park here, and vice versa. But again, by providing the adequate number of spaces, there shouldn't be a situation where I have to park way over there to walk way over there. You know what I mean?
Okay, thank you for that. And what about guest parking? Did you take that into consideration? You have the parking for the people who live there, but what about guest parking? I know I'm probably going overboard with this.
No, we have consulted that, and we have the benefit of the main church has 778 parking spaces that's directly across the walkway. So we did not directly build in parking associated with visitor spaces because we have the potential availability directly. Well, it's not even directly, it is on the same site. It's across the wetland area, but it's still available to use the likely, and again, there's 1,300 parking spaces currently provided for the church and the current existing auxiliary lot. my understanding so you've been here 20 some odd years, you said, I think over that time frame, they have never filled both lots entirely, and at most, under the largest events that they may have, I think they've said between 25 to 50% of the auxiliary lot has been filled. The number of spaces that have been provided are to satisfy the parking regulations, but it's one of those, if the commission is willing to listen to a potential waiver for the church parking, we have the potential to reduce parking even more. In particular, associated with the final phase that shows that larger parking area. That larger parking area is to accommodate some loss in the parking associated with the loss of the auxiliary lot. So there is the potential for us to lose additional parking spaces in that auxiliary lot if it is agreeable to the commission based on information provided by the church that the capacity of spaces are not required.
Okay, so I'm not going to compromise any more time, and I'll reserve my questions regarding security for another meeting.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
I'm sorry. This is the unit mix and parking, if you wanted to just understand.
You want to go through the unit mix? Because I said 2 studios, there's 1, or do you want me to go ahead and do it?
Real quick?
Yeah, really quickly, I know we're running out of time. So for the first phase, that's buildings A and B, there's 1 studio, it's a 2, there's 1. There's 43 1 bedrooms, 52 2 bedrooms, and 5 3 bedrooms. That's the first phase. And in the second phase, which is building C, there's 3 studios, 21 1 bedrooms, and 21 2 bedrooms.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bolton.
Well, all the good comments and good questions have already been posed. So I guess, because I do work in this space as well, I am curious. First of all, thank you for the presentation and the work that you guys are doing in this space. Are any of the units going to be ADA accessible or handicap accessible units?
Yes. I wish the architect was here. I don't know the specific requirements. I do know that a large portion of the ground floor will need to satisfy what I believe is called type A handicap accessibility. I don't know the unit count. I do know that we have provided additional handicap parking as a result of that. We will definitely have that information at the next meeting. But yes, to answer the question directly, yes, there will be ample handicap parking, handicapped accessible units available.
Does your design consider any type of PV or solar distributed energy sources as a part of this project?
Yes, we're considering. We were actually on the phone. We had a meeting with the Connecticut Green Bank a few days ago.
I know those folks.
So we want to make sure it's financeable, but that's one of the goals. And back to your question about the ADA accessibility, this project has to be built according to the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority's construction and design standards. So it speaks to their standards have a higher level of requirements than building.
Are those dedicated units or are the units just handicap accessible?
So I'm not an architect either, but I'm just saying we'll have those answers when we come back next month.
As you're considering solar as a power source, in terms of your heating, is it gas fired or are you considering 100% electric?
So we're hiring an energy consultant to go through this. There's actually, depending upon the energy source we go with, it also impacts the subsidies that's available in order to get these projects done. So we're literally going through those considerations now.
Well, if you include any of the PVs, your roof structure will have to incorporate that structural load, but yeah. No, that's all I had since all questions were already asked. Thank you very much. And again, thank you guys for your presentation.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'll just comment. Thank you for the presentation. I think you did a great job with that. I'll just say the commission has been struggling the last couple of years with affordable housing. So we recently passed regulation that included an affordable housing piece in all new development. So your timing with coming in with a huge affordable housing project is perfect. For us, that's like music to our ears. So thank you for that. And I'm just looking forward to seeing the full presentation, but thank you. Any further? And then we got to wrap it up. 'cause
Yeah.
We got another presentation.
I just have a comment following up on Commissioner James's comment about all the impervious pavement. My question would be is where's the open space for the residents in terms of if we're going to have a gathering? Do they have to have that in the parking lot? If a kid wants to go out and throw a ball around with somebody else, they're doing it in the parking lot. Where is the open space for the residents to use? I don't see that on there. Maybe you just haven't got to that, but I would like some consideration given to those items. We give a lot of consideration to how many parking spaces we have. Where are the spaces for the kid to go out and throw a Frisbee with his friend, to pass a ball around? Or if we're gonna have a group from one building have a outdoor picnic, where are they having that?
There's a large terrace area here that is intentionally designed for
Well,
that.
no, I don't need you to tell me that.
No, that's
tonight.
fine. That's fine.
That would be a concern I'd like to see. And then the other thing about the point about the delivering the groceries, you could designate some short-term parking for the resident can park in near wherever the elevator is in the building. So somebody could park there and get their things up. And that was the other question, the other comment I had about the length of corridors, because if you're only going to have an elevator at one end and then the other end, and you got those long buildings, that's going to be a schlep, somebody to carry bags of groceries up and go way down the corridor. So that goes to that defensible space comment I had made earlier on. So that's sort of the human touch to it. And obviously, we're all very happy to see the proposal and we want to be as supportive as we can. These are all comments to make it better.
Absolutely.
At this time, I'm gonna wrap this presentation up. We have a second one coming up.
That's fine.
Thank you very much.
My only
We
question.
appreciate it, and we're looking forward to next month
Okay,
seeing the
that's,
full
you
presentation.
just answered my question. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commission. I appreciate it. And thank you, sir, for your patience.
I hope we can all carry the same enthusiasm for this.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is another informal presentation by CTEC Solar regarding a potential solar farm at 141 Wintonberry Avenue in the R30 residential district. State your name and address, please.
My name is Kevin Costello. I'm with CTEC Solar. I'm a developer. I mainly handle site selection, due diligence, as well as interconnection for our projects in the Northeast. Wanted to talk to you today about a potential project at 141 Wintonberry Avenue, which is not too far away from a project we just looked at. So starting off, just to give everybody some quick background on CTEC, we have been in Bloomfield since the company started back in 2011. We began as a small yet humble company, mainly focusing on residential installations. But as business picked up and as solar became more and more viable in the state, we graduated to larger commercial projects, all the way now to utility scale solar farm projects all across the country. We're active in about 11 different states right now, but Connecticut is our hometown, our home base, and we have a huge focus on trying to do as much projects here as we possibly can. Given the opportunities that we do with the changing of administrations and the differences of opinions for green energy and renewable energy that we're dealing with now. Some folks may or may not be aware of this, but CTEC actually completed the very first in the state of Connecticut solar farm project through the old LREC ZREC program. And this is actually not too far away from where the proposed project is. This is located at the Bloomfield Board of Education. And it's actually a similar size. This is about 2 megawatts DC, which we could equate to about 1.2 megawatts AC, which is very close in size to the project that we would be presenting. In terms of solar farms, the state of Connecticut has a program called NRES, Non-Residential Energy Services, which is a counterpart of the RRES program, which is the program that everybody uses for their homes to put solar on. The program allows for projects that range from 1 to 5 megawatts in size, and this being a 1 megawatt size project actually falls very much on the lower end of the spectrum. We would consider this to be a small solar farm. This helps to support the state of Connecticut's sustainability and energy goals. And this also helps to reduce carbon emissions and energy costs, ideally across the entire state as we move away from coal and oil-fired power plants and try to instead embrace renewable energy instead. The proposed location is at 141 Wittenberry Avenue. The parcel itself is approximately 19.25 acres. The array that we were currently planning is around 6 acres, including the access road, but that still remains to get finalized with our design. The site was chosen primarily for its proximity to the grid interconnection. That's one of the main things when we're looking at sites. It becomes a make or break factor pretty quickly is if there's going to be a positive interconnection with the utility company. What that means is all across the streets, we're hooking up to what's called distribution lines. And these are the power lines that you see all throughout your neighborhoods, your cities that are just on the sides of the road. They oftentimes are single phase, 3-phase power. The larger projects that you see sometimes out west that are 50 to 100 megawatts, those are what's called transmission projects, and those utilize the high tension transmission lines that are all throughout the country. This is a smaller project, and like I said, the reason that we chose it is quite frankly, it's becoming harder and harder in the state of Connecticut to find viable places to do these projects. The main reason is we are part of what's called ISO New England. That is the grid that we are a part of. Basically starts lower New England, goes all the way up to Canada, and encompasses about 5 or 6 states. The reason that it is so difficult to find good sites for projects is because due to the fact that we are in New England, we were the first area of the country to get electricity. We have the oldest, most dilapidated power grid out of the entire country. And we oftentimes, when we're finding sites, have to go to the utility company where they'll tell us how much it'll cost to do a project. And what has happened over the past couple of years is interconnection costs have gone through the roof to the point where sites are just getting harder and harder to find. This site over here at 141 Wittenberry Avenue is what we consider to be in a Goldilocks zone because it has right at the street on Wittenberry Avenue over 5 megawatts of available power, which is insanely rare to find now in Connecticut. So we would be using one of those megawatts for this project ideally. And like I said, this is going to be a 1 megawatt size project. We're going to be using ground mounted panels, single axis trackers. They're actually going to move with the sun as the sun travels across the sky throughout the day. The panels will alternate themselves to be able to have maximum output all the time. Integrated fencing and landscaping for visual screening. The entire parcel is this rectangle that goes all across the west side of the property here down and forms this large rectangle. We've positioned the array as far away as possible from any residences to minimize any impact that it would have on their homes, on them being near it. This is a very small system, 1 megawatt, and oftentimes Factors like noise, are we gonna see it? Are we gonna hear it come up? With a project like this, that's very little to no concern. We've done many projects of this size in the state of Connecticut and have actually gone out with other town boards in person to view these projects when sound was a concern, and it was the consensus of all the board members that a project of this size, 1 megawatt, very, very minimal. When people complain about those kind of issues, they're referring to much, much larger projects which have a great deal of inverters. The inverters can sometimes be a bit noisy when you're dealing with a large project as opposed to a small project like this. Just to give everybody a quick overview of the timeline for 2025 and 2026 is when we would be focusing on permitting and approvals. Also in 2025 and 2026 is when final engineering and procurement would begin. If all those steps go well, ideally construction would begin in 2027, with the system commissioning and operation also commencing in 2027. So a total of 12 to 15 months from approval to operation, and we've been working in conjunction with the town wetlands and inlands department, as there are some overlaps of wetlands towards the south side of the array. So we're considering both on-site and off-site mitigation for those. And we would be proposing a text amendment at the following meeting to allow solar as a primary use in residential zones in Bloomfield. Propose a text amendment to current zoning regulations, I'm sorry. And we would be ideally doing this at next month's public hearing. Community benefits, this helps to increase local renewable energy generation, creates a plethora of jobs during construction and ongoing maintenance. We sub out locally for that all the time as much as possible on projects that we complete. Supports the state of Connecticut's climate resilience and energy independence goals. This, like I said before, is part of the NRES program, which is a state mandated program to try to meet certain energy goals by 2025, 2030, so on and so forth. So this directly coincides with the state's goals to meet those figures, which is why we would hopefully like to be able to do this project. It presents a long-term tax revenue for the town and even some educational opportunities for local schools and residents if they want to learn about solar, learn more about clean energy. We would be happy to set up some sort of programs where we can educate the youth or anybody who wants to know more about solar, possibly look at seeing that as a career. And in conclusion, what our next steps we would hope to be would be to continue collaborating with the Planning and Zoning Board, submit a formal text amendment, participate in the upcoming public hearings, and address any community feedback, concerns that anyone would have, including members of the board, members of the town, and anybody. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you very much. We're gonna start at this end for any questions or comments. We're not gonna do two separate things, so whatever you have, just present it all. Commissioner Millet.
Okay, the size of the project that's being proposed, and I'm somewhat familiar with the Board of Education. So if I remember correctly, the Board of Education was split into two, so it didn't get into commercial grade or utility grade.
That I don't know. I was not with CTEC back when that system was installed.
I think once you get above 1 megawatt, I think it goes into utility.
There's a bit of a differences of opinions depending on who you, not to contradict you, but different markets have different definitions, different utilities have different definitions for what they consider to be utility scale. Eversource, for example, considers anything 1 to 5 megawatts to be distribution projects and anything above that to be utility scale.
So that's one thing I would want some clarity on as far as is this going to be utility grade or not? Because I think that does it starts to change who's got oversight and everything
Sure.
over that. And I know there was definitely some creative accounting or whatever with the Board of Education's project to
Okay.
get that done. Because it was too big in one project. So I'm pretty sure it's split into two. This is a little bit different from if you go down the road, there's Seabury, there's a pretty large.
That's actually the landowner for this project.
Okay.
Seabury.
So yeah, I think I saw that on the property card. So instead of the ground mount that they have on a little bit further to the east, this would be pivoting, and how high would those go?
So I hesitate to give you an exact number until we have the final system
Sure.
design, but a good rule of thumb, I would say, would be 8 feet.
Okay, and that would be something, we'd be looking for in the details.
Sure.
So basically, how much can they be screened? I know going back to the other array that was put out there, I think, there's a PVC panel fence now. I'm pretty sure everybody wanted something a little better than that, as much as we love solar. So just kind of throwing that out there. In this case, it looks like, it's probably maybe tucked back in a more narrow lot versus a big, huge corner.
Sure.
But just, that would be of interest to me in a formal proposal, along with, I guess we're gonna have to clarify, can it even go in, we need a text amendment to even get there. So,
I see. Okay. We can do
thank
that.
you.
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner O'Brien.
The only question I'd have was of staff in terms of if this amendment was to go through, what other areas would it affect?
This isn't working.
Yep, that's working.
It is?
Yes.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, we heard it.
Could you, Roger, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, well, it's a text amendment.
Turn yours on.
So it's a text amendment. So my question is, if we put this text amendment into this particular zone, how many other areas of the town are we opening up to this type of development?
I'm sure there are a few. I can't give you the specifics, but I know that the two significant requirements, as I understand it, for even considering a site is one, the size of the site and its proximity to a connection to the grid. So that, begins to significantly limit the number of sites that are realistically available, but I don't know that number.
There's not too many in Bloomfield. As I was saying earlier, we're limited very heavily as a developer to being able to find areas that have a positive grid interconnection. When you're dealing with projects that are in this range, the 1 to 5 megawatt range, it is possible to approach the utility company in cases where there isn't a positive interconnection to see if it's possible to do a feeder upgrade, to do a substation upgrade when the megawatts aren't available. But you typically wouldn't do that on a project of this size. So exactly to what you were saying, the reason that this was chosen is because we are extremely close to a grid, to a feeder line that has ample power on it to actually support that project, as opposed to other areas in town where you may have a wide open field that would theoretically be perfect for solar, but right at the street, you have a line with no power on it, and the cost to upgrade it is so high that it doesn't make sense to do a project that's that size anymore.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner James.
So I don't know if it's for our department, but why not just change the zone?
We don't have any controlling regulations for this type of project in any of our zones.
Oh.
And our goal, if I can just say from CTEC's perspective, our goal when we propose the text amendment wouldn't be to allow unrestricted, unfettered solar development anywhere in your town. It would be, we would be looking, and we already have done a great amount of due diligence and work on this, researching what other towns have come up with in terms of rules for allowing or not allowing solar in certain zones. And we've looked at primarily areas in the northeast of Connecticut where they've had such heavy solar development and they've had a chance to see what's worked, what hasn't worked. So we've come up with, I think, and I would prefer to get into more of the technical details on the text amendment in the following meeting, but we've identified 3 or 4 towns that seem to have a set of rules that works for everybody. Not, I don't want to say for everybody, but it works for the town and it works for certain projects that meet the town's requirements, but doesn't allow for everything to happen.
Quick one for staff. What he's talking about, would that be considered like spot zoning? Where he wants to basically do a text amendment, but limit it to this certain area?
Not necessarily. We're not remapping.
Right, I know it's not a zone change. That's why I'm
Right, so-
saying,
Which
is
is
it
what spot
considered?
zoning would be. We are creating a set of regulations that would allow this use, as we do now, in particular zones under certain circumstances with particular regulation.
Okay, well, that would
So,
be
I mean-
different from what he's saying.
I mean,
It goes back to what Commissioner O'Brien was
right,
saying.
but whenever
how
you
many
do,
other
whenever
areas
you do a
would be
text amendment,
Right,
it doesn't, you have to recognize that it does not necessarily only affect that particular property that's asking for the text amendment.
right. I'm just correcting what he,
Right.
I think, was indicating.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Goff. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you finished?
Yeah, I have no more questions. I just wanted to say, I do
I'm
have
sorry.
enthusiasm for your
Thank you.
presentation. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, a couple of things. First on the, I can say pretty definitively that I would not be in favor of a text amendment. I think the comment that was made earlier, I think we need to have some kind of regulations on solar. And then we could say it was allowed in certain zones under this under this regulation. I don't like changing the R30 zone initially, so I think that's something to talk about with staff. We had a long discussion at a previous meeting about how text amendments get promulgated, and I really think they need to arise sort of organically from the zoning body. I do think that you're raising an important question. Where do we allow solar? So I just raised that I'm not sure this is the proper way to go about it. Could you go back to the picture of where maybe the further view of that picture where the the location of the solar panels?
A zoomed out version of this?
Yeah, you
I
had,
don't
we
have
had
that
one of
just-
this in the slide.
I don't have it on the slide, unfortunately, but
Oh,
I
okay,
can
maybe this,
pull it
oh,
up on.
you're right, seeing it on my screen, this is what you're showing.
Okay.
So I'm a little I'm a little confused by this also because I do know the field across from Seabury which Seabury owns, but across the road on the south side of Wittenberry. If you zoom back on that, isn't there a lot of area that does not have trees in that?
No, so I apologize for not having a better picture. So if we were to zoom out, we would basically be seeing the street just above where this cuts off right here. To the east side, that's town of Bloomfield open space. Right on to the right side of the array, and then to the left side of the array it does appear from this picture that it is somewhat cleared. But our thinking with placing the array where we did was to minimize any impact we would have if that was your question, sir, I'm sorry.
So the road I'm seeing in the picture here is which road?
That is.
Candlewood Drive.
Yep.
It's Candlewood? Okay.
I can do that. That's easier.
Well, I guess the point, just looking at all this, part of my concern is I see all those lines and they're going through the trees.
There would be some.
Yeah,
tree clearing,
yeah,
but
I mean,
To give you some background on this exact parcel, this was initially all clear cut. I don't know exactly when, but they had, Seabury at one point did lease this out to a farmer
yeah.
who had cleared the land. And I think what had happened is I don't know the exact details and I don't want to speculate, but that didn't happen. They ended up not moving forward with that project. So I think after they had done the clear cutting, the years kind of reclaimed the property. So what you're seeing there is there are some trees on there.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
very old and it's a lot of
Scrub.
scrub,
Buckthorn.
brush.
You
Yeah,
got a lot of
exactly.
buckthorn
Things,
in there.
things like that. And we
So
did.
you're actually going to clear invasives for us.
We're gonna clear, there's a benefit to us clearing this, believe it or not, because we did do a wetlands delineation report and survey, and it was discovered that there is a number of invasive species that are have taken up refuge.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Basically right where the array is, so it would kind of kill two birds with one stone, and with the sense that we can get all that cleared out, get it back looking ship shape, get the invasive species out of there, and then I don't want to step out of my lane, but any wetlands that we might have to mitigate also, we can do that to the left side of the array.
So my last question on this is just sort of, this is more of a philosophical question.
Sure.
So, you're going to put an array in that's going to bring 1 megawatt of, alternating power online. And to move toward a renewable energy, can you identify where the 1 megawatt of non-renewable power is going to be taken off the line?
At what exact point, I don't know. The way that these projects work, this is what's referred to by Eversource as a buy all, sell all project, or a BASA, or a front of the meter project. So what happens is a new meter is installed at the site, and 100% of the power that is generated at the site is directly sent right back to the grid. So the benefit is spread out entirely. I don't know if there's a way to pinpoint it down to a level to say exactly where that's going to be distributed at the local level.
Yeah, I'm not talking about so much about the distribution. I'm just talking about, what I see is just adding. What I see constantly with all of this, where, we're adding energy, we're not balancing. And sort of like all of this adds to, it doesn't, so the idea is we're going to renewable energy. Well, the idea is to replace that. If you look at the graphs, it's just a constant increase. And, at the end of the day, that in itself is not sustainable. So I understand the work you're doing is, predicated on the idea that you're creating sustainability by moving to solar power. But, I think in the bigger picture, we're not really doing that. And that's not really something for you, but,
Right.
I just want to point that.
No, that's definitely something to keep in mind for sure. There are two different types of projects that we can do. One is the one I just described, where we are kind of adding to, we're generating more power and sending that back to the grid. You could just as well do a netting project where we're putting the solar up and we're using that to offset power that's already being taken up on site. It's just two different versions of two different options. So it's possible to do that with a solar farm, but it's just the economics of it. You typically wouldn't do it because you would need to have on-site load to begin with to offset.
You got Seabury across the street. Anyway.
They have a beautiful carport project that they did that they.
I know.
I tell people to go look at that all the time if they want to actually go and see an installed car canopy and what it actually looks like and how it's supposed to look. They did a very nice project over there for that.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marshall Neely.
Thank you, but I asked so many questions last time. I'm going to defer until the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bolton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I didn't get a chance to get into the weeds of your informal presentation prior to your presentation. This is a CTEC project on whose land?
This is a CTEC project. It's going to be on Seabury Life's land.
Are you leasing the
We
land
are.
from CTEC? Okay. Okay. No, no issue there. I just didn't know. I'm all for solar. I thought that there was gonna be a direct benefit overall to like homes in Bloomfield or something, but based on what you've just, Honorable Commissioner Goff asked you and your explanation of the Eversource program.
Not directly, it's very similar to what I said. The power is gonna go back to the feeder.
Oh, I get it.
All to
I
the
get it.
grid, so it in theory would benefit Bloomfield because that's where we are with the
Isn't it just
actual
adding more
power.
resiliency or to
It does,
Eversource's
it does.
grid?
It adds more resiliency to Eversource's grid. It prevents them from having, Eversource's biggest hangup is the fact that they have to spend their own money to do grid upgrades. When a project like this happens, the developer actually pays for grid upgrades. So any type of feeder upgrade that would need to be done, any type of reconductoring, if we had to upgrade single phase to three phase, if it's not the case in this particular project, but if we did, that's on the onus of the developer to actually to pay for that. So there is a bit of a hidden community benefit in the sense that if we were to come in, we may need to upgrade electrical infrastructure that would get upgraded. Of course, the tax benefits to the town that.
Is this program contributing towards the amount of total green energy electricity that's being created by renewable energies? Was it a 10% goal overall? for the
Yes.
State of Connecticut,
Yes.
if I remember correctly?
Yep.
Does this contributing towards
yes,
that?
this contributes directly towards that.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's all the real questions that I have
Okay.
on a higher level, but I'm sure I'll have more questions as you.
As we get
Present in
closer and
detail.
present the text, absolutely.
Oh, I do have a question for staff. So solar is what? Is it an accessory use to to properties in the town of Bloomfield now, based on our regs? We don't have any, so well, how are we building solar farms and other than Board of Ed?
Accessory, so the principal use on the Board of Ed is the school.
Okay.
It's just to allow, what he wants is to allow solar as a principal use.
Ooh, yeah, okay, gotcha. And you have to go to the siting council, right, because it's over 1 megawatt?
No, not for this one. We actually would be going to the town because they
Really?
do anything that's 2 megawatts and above for siting council.
Is that a new rule for the siting? I thought it was over.
No, it's been that way since I was aware. It might be, I might have that number incorrect in my mind and it might be 1, but since we're right at 1, the siting council wouldn't have jurisdiction over this. I know that for a fact.
Okay. All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Just one question for you. Have you had any conversations with our CEEC committee regarding this clean energy project?
I don't believe so. So far, all we've spoken to is this board and wetlands as well.
Oh, okay. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
CEC?
Yes, yes.
We can help you set that up.
That would be great. Thank you. I
Excellent.
would appreciate that.
Yep. That's all I have. So if there's anything else you want to say, if not, we can conclude this.
I just wanted to keep it pretty high level for our first meeting and just introduce not only myself, CTEC, the project, meet all of everybody on the board here. So I really appreciate everybody's time. I know it's very late and after everything, you're probably just ready to go home, but I appreciate listening to me ramble on. This was my first town meeting, so I hope I did okay. I got a little nervous in the beginning there, but
Very good.
thank you so much. And we would very much welcome any and all help that you just mentioned with the other department. And we look forward to presenting hopefully at the next town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay. Should I turn this off or?
Okay, next item on the agenda, we go into old business, and that's just an update on the PLCD by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did send out a brief memo. Succinctly, we have received and I and my predecessor have spent a fair amount of time thoroughly reviewing all of the comments and recommendations, grammatical and on up, regarding the draft POCD that we received directly, received by email, received in the public hearing. And we decided together with Linda that as presently constituted, it would be a disservice for the commission to adopt and release the document. And we have also decided that it would be appropriate and necessary to do a fairly significant rewrite of the document and incorporate some very significant and appropriate recommendations, both from members of the commission, other agencies and boards, and the general public. And I have secured funding to retain consultant services for about a 5-week period for about 100 hours of work. And we think that is sufficient time, together with the input and work of the staff, to redo the document, to present back to you a document that reflects your vision of where you want the town to go and is, as it not is, Bloomfield centric. So that's where we are. We will begin in earnest next week. I was, of course, out of town, away for a while, and the consultant is away for a week. But then we will get at it, and we think we can get it done in about 5 weeks with our other workload commitments.
Okay, thank you for the update. If there's nothing, oh, sure.
Sorry, just a question. What would be the process once you have those updates? Do we have another public hearing or?
We would not schedule another public hearing. We would bring it back to you for action. It then has to be referred to the council under statute. They do not have to have a public hearing either. They have 30 days to comment on it. Their comments are advisory only, and then you can formally adopt it.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
So when it comes back, we don't going to be expected to act on it that first meeting. We have time to read it and make comments.
So we're going to slap it down in your desk and expect it.
Yeah, well, you know where I was going with that.
We will obviously give you all time to review it, and we may even reach out at an appropriate time to get some specific guidance from anyone who wishes to give it to us.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Chair, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I would also apologize for my late arrival. I was directed, and I had to be staffing the council's special finance committee meeting where they were reviewing of things related to tax assessments and housing trust fund.
Linda did an excellent job in your absence.
You were in far better hands.